Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Outlaw Nation here tonight. I'm feeling good. Had a very busy day, a lot to handle today, but now I finally get to settle down a little bit and hang out with all the Outlaw Nation patrons and fans. So excited tonight to welcome one of my friends, someone I've gotten to know certainly through the Schmoedown, but someone I've gotten to make a personal connection with, someone who I respect, who I admire, has accomplished so much in such a short amount of time. Still a youngin' compared to me, but doing so much to change, to wreck the world and change the world and stomp over the world. And this is just the start of it. God knows where he's going to end up, but we're all very privileged to be at the beginning, at the ascension of the great Brad Gilmore, and I'll bring him in just a second. Just want to welcome you all to the Outlaw Nation Show. Thank you all so much for joining us live. Remember, the Streamlabs and Super Chats are open. That's how we handle things here on the Outlaw Nation channel. Send some support. Send some questions in. I'm sure some of you have some questions you want to ask Brad Gilmore, maybe some stuff about the Schmoedown, about the FCL. You know, he is the commissioner of the FCL, calls all the matches as well. In fact, he just called 2 matches with the great Steps to Bra and coming in to hang out with us for a couple of hours. So if you got some stories, you got some things you want to know, some questions you want to ask, start sending in your Streamlabs Super Chats now. Maybe at $100, he'll tell us a story, a behind-the-scenes story. At $200, another behind-the-scenes story. At $300, we'll get him to take off his shirt. At $400, the sky's the limit. That's what I'm saying. So let's make it all happen here on the Outlaw Nation Show tonight. Hope you all are doing well. Hope everything is going well in your lives. And I hope you're enjoying all the new content that's been happening already through the week. Got more. I got dropped a couple of reviews here. Dropped that Luca review. Dropped the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard review. Salma Hayek is incredible in that film. Don't miss out on that film. And I just dropped the trailer reaction for Ted Lasso Season 2, the first official one that dropped yesterday. That trailer, going to drop a Suicide Squad trailer reaction tomorrow morning. Don't forget, Geek Buddies is on tomorrow, and we've got John and Wendy Explain the World on Friday, and I might have something special coming up for the Jedi Way this week if I can make it happen for sure. So keep your eyes peeled for so many things happening here on the Outlaw Nation channel, plus Strong Style Pro Wrestling. We're going to get into that with Brad Gilmore as well, a little pro wrestling conversation. We're going to find out if he's working on another book on the heels of the incredible reception for his Back to the Future book as well, and get into everything that's going on in his world as well. All right, thank you all so much for joining us, and let's get it going without further ado. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, host, producer, commissioner, author, good-looking son of a bitch, and newly engaged mofo. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brad Gilmore. How are you, brother?
What's going on, John? What a hell of an introduction, man. Like only you can. How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on, man. I know, like I said, you just finished 2 matches in the FCL. I was watching the last match on Twitch, trying it out because I had, or the 2 matches rather, because I had one of my Outlaw Nation patrons, Brennan. He competed tonight, and I don't know. Can we give anything spoilers? I don't want to give anything away.
Sure, it's live.
Okay.
It was live.
What a fantastic victory for him. Sad for the cow, but loving the fact that Brennan took care of business. Were you impressed? How much are you enjoying doing the FCL and discovering all this new talent that might be getting picked up by some of these factions maybe this year or next year as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing, and I've told it a little bit, but, you know, it was sometime in January, maybe early February, pre-draft, I got a call from Christian Harloff. The call lasted maybe 60 seconds, and he was like, hey, we're doing this minor league thing, developmental league. I want you to be the commissioner. That was literally his pitch. And then I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Sounds good. And then he's like, all right, cool. We'll talk later. Bye. And that was like the whole conversation. And then,
sounds about right.
Then next thing you know, we start building this FCL. I start building out the team, coming up with the idea, the name, all these things, and having guys like PLD and all Dwayne and Steph and everybody. And, I've so much enjoyed it. And it's been, John, when you're in the Schmoedown for a while, sometimes it gets routine. It's like, okay, let me watch the matches. Let me do this. Okay, let me do that. I'm going to talk about it on the rundown. This has given me a whole different perspective of the Schmoedown, right? It's given me something that I love. Coming from my background, I love being able to make stories and characters. And now I feel like I'm Dana White some weeks. I have my whiteboard and I'm coming up with matchups. I'm on the phone with PLD for hours on end. It's been great. And then to have 3 players really in our first availability of free agency when the FCL, to have 3 different players get drafted by different teams, being Nick Harley, Gerald Battaglia, and Ross Arsenal. Man, that's awesome. That's an awesome way to start off. So I've really enjoyed the FCL.
Yeah, I mean, you had Christian who had that idea, wanted to put it in motion, and found the right guy. You've been around the Schmoedown. As you said, you've been around the Schmoedown for the last few seasons. You understand what works and what doesn't work here. Plus, you've got a good idea of what is great with storylines. You love professional wrestling, your connections to Booker T. All of that helps you to have almost a secondhand knowledge of what Christian is trying to put into place here in the FCL. How much autonomy have you had through this process? You mentioned a whiteboard. You mentioned, Charlie Day doing that stuff like It's Always Sunny in Philly, connecting all the red threads, having PLD, having Dwayne, having Steph. Like, how much autonomy do you have here overall? Or is Christian still kind of influencing what you're doing? Or is he allowing you to run a little bit freer than he would allow in the Schmoedown itself?
Yeah, no, he's given me really full range. And the thing is, if you have somebody like Christian Harloff, though, and you don't bounce ideas off of him,
right?
I mean, you're not utilizing your resources. The guy obviously has his background with the WWF, back in the day.
Yep.
And then he's been doing he invented, the Schmoedown. And, him and Mark Ellis.
Right.
And he helped assist with the creation of the characters and putting them in the right way, of the Dangerous Dan Burrows, the John Rochas, the Outlaws, the Ben the Boss Batemans, all those guys. Like, if I didn't call him and say, hey, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of this matchup?
Right.
And, he's given me some ideas that we've run with. He's given me ideas where he's like, look, this is just what I would do. You do whatever you want to.
Right.
And sometimes I take his advice. Sometimes I go a different direction. I go with my gut. But he's a great sounding board to, and I'm sure he might be annoyed by sometimes I'll send him a voice note. There's like a 3-minute story pitch, and he's got to sit there and listen to the whole thing. And then I'm like, I hope I'm not annoying him. But it's been great to have him, but it's also been great to have that creative freedom of coming up with these ideas, coming up with stories, filming scenes, and doing what he does on the Schmoedown level. But we're doing it more like season 4 is what a lot of people have said about the FCL. It's like a throwback. There's not leagues. There's not these all these. I mean, not leagues. There's not factions and teams. And, and point values and things like that. It's really just an old school gunslinger kind of league, and I really love that coming from the pro wrestling world.
Well, you talk about gunslinger, you've got my attention when you talk about that kind of approach. Yeah, it's been fun to see some of these promos. It's been fun to see these guys and gals who didn't get selected get almost like a second shot at trying to prove their worth here. And I think Christian probably sensed that they're, because some of the, we drafted well, clearly, but some other factions maybe didn't understand what a draft actually meant, don't have the sports knowledge, or didn't have the real expertise to dive into really exploring the minutia of the back end of your draft in the last few picks, how that can be important to you as well. So now they're understanding it through, some players not wanting to play for them, or some players not doing well. They're understanding, oh yeah, I should have picked for knowledge, not picked for attention or for spotlight or for views. And now they're looking at the FCL. So, Christian maybe even thinking a little bit for his own managers, creating this league here so that those managers who maybe needed some players to pick up now have a place they can go and take a look at. Because, this doesn't happen usually in most leagues. You are picking up, I guess, G League people, but they're not going to come in necessarily and shock the world. But some of these players, I think, Brad, you've seen some of these players look like they could take on any of the Schmoedown competitors at this point and step into a match no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great proving ground. To touch on something that you said there is, maybe you did do your due diligence with your draft board, but as you know, sometimes you draft somebody who looks great in college, and then they come into the league, and you're like, okay, well, what's not translating here? What I mean? Like a Michael Carter Williams, who was a rookie of the year, and then all of a sudden he falls off the face of the earth. You see that so often. So to have the availability to say, okay, you know what, these picks aren't working out. what are they doing there in the FCL? And then that's where you get guys like Nick Harley, who to me is a total package guy. He's a total package guy. You have someone like a Gerald Battaglia, total package guy. Ross Arsenal, who's somebody who I really truly believe can battle the Alex Damons and the Andrew DeMolantas and the Laura Kellys and the Thomas Harpers in Star Wars. This guy's insane.
And the gold leaders. Don't forget the
gold leaders. Oh, gotta shout out to Gold Leader.
How dare you?
Shout out to Gold Leader. But you have that opportunity now to see it. And for some of the players who played in the Schmoedown before and maybe didn't put their best foot forward, or maybe just kind of fell out of favor and they weren't in the front of people's minds, like Robert Montano and Vanessa Fitzsimmons. Oh my gosh, like how are they not on a faction?
You're right.
They're so good. And Vanessa was a question away. She was a holiday film question away from competing for our FCL title. So I think that this is a great ground to either, develop your skills or to get back hot again.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. I was looking at you guys making the announcement of bringing the Star Wars division back into the FCL, and I thought to myself, this may be a journey I go on. I've done the Schmoedown for 7 seasons. Why don't I just go a little bit backwards here and dive into the FCL and see what I can do down there and have a little fun down there, see what I can do in the Star Wars division, see what I can do there against some of the competitors. It might be a little bit fun. It's happening in my head right now. I know some people are like, why would you go to the FCL? It's to challenge yourself. After playing 7 seasons, playing all the greats, and I've won 4 titles. Not that I have left to prove in this league. Dancing around in the FCL, maybe light a little fire under some of the asses down there, getting a chance to play the Outlaw. It might be fun. John the Outlaw Rocha versus Kofi Outlaw. The battle for the name could be very, very interesting for sure. So
I would love that.
And sliding into the Star Wars division, maybe doing a little bit of studying. I won't be taking on the Gold Leaders or the Thomas Harpers or the Laura Kellys, but maybe down there I might be able to hang for a little bit if I do some studying over the next few months. Could be a lot of fun. So I don't know. It's been great to see that fire reawakened for some of us who are up in the Schmoedown area looking at the FCL and wondering how we might do against some of these people. It could be a lot of fun. You never know.
No, man, I'm enjoying it. And you know what? I always got to really shout out, because you're only as good as the people around you.
Yeah.
And I really have to shout out the entire team over there, PLD, who's really taken this, to the next level. I tell people there would not be a first-class league without Paul Denuzio. And I mean, he's the head writer. He's the guy who's the number 2 guy, right? He's number 2 in command. I go to him for everything. We throw, text back and forth several times a day. So Paul Denuzio needs his flowers, right, of how great of a job. And Dwayne Burke, who's running this whole live production by himself and doing it sensationally. We're in Skype. He's got entrances, he's got interviews, he's got wheels, he's got round cards, he's got all these things that he has to pull up, and I don't know how he does it. And Steph Sabra, I'd never worked with Steph before. I didn't even know her. Our first conversation that we had, it was a Christian Harloff suggestion. He said, hey, what if you have Steph come in and do like post-game interviews? And I said, oh, that'd be cool. She's doing them on the Schmoedown. And then I said, well, if she's going to be there, she might as well call the match too. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And we did it one dress rehearsal before the first FCL event. And it was my first time meeting her, and I knew, like from the second, I was like, oh, I could work with her every single day of the week. Yeah. So easy. From working on SEN Live. You can throw anything at her, bounce anything off her. She'll come back with something funny. She lives in the moment. She knows how to do the give and go. So talented on so many levels. So after our first stream, I was like, oh, okay. You know what? Instead of having a rotating door, which was going to be the initial idea, have somebody in every week different. Why not stick with, if it worked that well, don't mess it up. Yeah. And Steph has been so sensational on so many levels. So a big shout out to the whole team over there. Jacob Patrick doing all our graphics. I go on and on. I don't mean to take up your whole 2 hours.
No, please.
Giving props to everybody.
I love it.
But the writing staff, everybody, man, has just done their job so well. And I've just kind of been, for lack of a better term, to the captain, just sitting back and saying, yeah, I like this. No, let's change that. And then let's put it on the air. And it's just been such a streamlined, easy process. And I like I said, our season, we're now 13 events in.
Yeah.
and already did the title match last week, which was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, Flirt and Flouse is the
a lot
FCL
of controversy
champion.
there, Brad.
I mean,
a lot of controversy, man. And Andre the Giant DiBiase.
What the hell is going on?
Some people called it David Arquette getting the WCW title. A lot of people, a lot of controversy, man. How are you getting some of the blowback? You know, Christian Harloff, I've been on the phone with him. I've been on emails with him when it has exhausted the hell out of him, the Schmoedown, because of fans' responses. Fans feeling they have a direct, a person they go to directly with their concerns or their issues or their problems. Have you been experiencing that as the FCL commissioner? It can't all be gravy, man. Is there a little bit of blowback on you sometimes?
Here's the thing. If there is, it hasn't reached me. You know what I mean? Like, nice. I know that I just found out today that there's apparently a Reddit thread or something like that, and Reddit's not anything that I've ever gotten into.
There's no way there's a Reddit thread. No, that can't.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. But the thing is, I don't let any of that touch me, right? I don't let it get to me.
Smart.
And the thing is, I care what people have to say, and if you have a valid criticism, obviously I'm going to hear it out. And if it's that obvious of a flaw in the product, I'm probably going to see it way before you do, because I'm like any of us who are creators, you're always thinking of, okay, what's going right, what's going wrong, how can I fix this, what can I do this, and so with that, if it's a big enough thing, obviously I'm going to probably notice it or I'll hear about it. But people who chit chat and complain, right? I mean, you can't give that any energy. Because then it's going to be all you think about. I mean, I learned that a long time ago looking through your mentions or your comments. It's like, one comment can throw you off for a year if it's if it's negative enough, right?
Yeah.
And I got the experience at a really early age to have to deal with, not just criticism of me, but critical review of my work. And you just have to know you're never as good as they say you are, and you're never as bad as they say you are. You're somewhere in between. As long as you can keep that perspective, you're going to be all right.
Yeah, never get too high, never get too low,
right?
And you'll make it through everything. It is tough for certain. We've seen certain competitors kind of, take the brunt of some of the criticism, hunt through YouTube comments to see the negative, ignore all the positive comments, and find that one negative comment. And I don't know that it ever leads to anything positive. It's best to just ignore the chat, ignore the comments that are negative, not ignore obviously the constructive criticism, as you said, or the positive comments there. Those are helpful for you, win or lose. It's like when I beat Liz in the TKO, receiving the comments for Liz, so many people were so supportive of her. Hardly anyone was negative. And in those moments, that could be something that kind of helps you and picks you back up again. I mean, hell, I had my Rocky IV moment against Bateman. Like, people were hating me at the beginning of the match. By the end, they were like so impressed by what I was able to do against Bateman. And so, you just never know how the fans are going to react to things. So it's best to just kind of do your thing, focus on yourself, appreciate the attention, and then move on to the next thing. So you got a smart point of view for sure, brother, man. How were you impressed by Brennan tonight, by Outlaw Nation patron Brennan tonight and his performance? Talk to me about how you felt about how he did tonight in the match.
Man, I was really pleased with that first match between him and the Flying Cow. We were billing it as the winner gets an FCL contract. It's officially on the roster. So Brennan is officially on the roster of the First Class League. And you know what, man? I got to say, the knowledge that both players exhibited was great. And for Brennan to pull it out there after, they were even essentially the whole way through. Brennan checks down a multiple choice on one with the Witches of Eastwick question, gets it. But then I thought with the way that they were playing, these guys are going to go blow for blow. They're going to go all night. And, that 1 point is going to be the difference maker. But, man, he stayed the course. He made sure that he answered the questions that he needed to answer. Didn't even have to hit his 5. Flying Cow couldn't find a couple of answers. And Brennan walks away with a really decisive victory in his debut. And I was really proud of him. This is the first time I got to meet him, first time I got to talk to him earlier today on the phone. And he was a great dude.
He's an incredible guy, man. And we actually went at it in a match a couple of weeks ago. So like he's been getting trained by the Outlaw Nation patrons as well to get him ready for the match. So great to see him do so well because he loves movie trivia. He's a big Star Wars guy. So I wonder if the door is going to start opening to the Star Wars division for Brennan. He is a massive Star Wars guy. So we'll see step by step. Well, let's answer a couple of these Streamlabs that have come through. And ladies and gentlemen, please send in your Streamlabs, Super Chats, and support here for Brad Gilmore being on the show. And if you haven't hit that like button, hit that thumbs up button. If it's your first day on YouTube, that's what the like button is. It's that thumbs up button. Hit it there. And if you're watching later, hit it there as well and leave a comment. Likes and comments elevate the visibility of the show. Oh, well, speaking of Brennan, he's the first Streamlab we have here. Brennan says, hello, Brad, John. What are your greatest experiences in movie theaters? All right, Brad, do you have a great experience or a couple of great experiences in a movie theater, seeing a movie, being around people when it happened, some communal experience? What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that just pop into my mind. This is going to sound silly, but the first movie that I ever had an emotional reaction to in the theater, to where I was on the edge of my seat, I was cheering when you were supposed to, I was crying when you were supposed to, was the Rugrats movie.
Yes,
I remember there's a point in that movie where it looks like Spike, their dog, dies. And I vividly remember being very young and jumping out of my seat and like yelling in the theater, Spike, and crying my eyes out. And so I remember that, seeing Dark Knight Rises, opening night with a theater, packed thick full of people was an awesome experience. And then the first time I'd ever seen anybody, without talking to each other, without looking around, stand up and give a movie a standing ovation was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I went to a Guardians of the Galaxy showing. It was over, and with everybody just knew, let's stand up and clap for this film. And so those are three that come to mind as just great experiences that I remember having.
That's awesome. Yeah, my girlfriend and I are working our way through the MCU films in release order. Guardians of the Galaxy is in her top 5. Maybe, I think it's almost number 1. I think it might be number 1. She thoroughly loves that movie. This is a woman who did not want to watch any of these Marvel movies, thinking they didn't have anything for her, and she's been enjoying the experience so far. So
it's my favorite as well.
It's such a great movie, such a good movie. For me, 2 things. I think with recent memory, because I've seen so many, guys. I've been around since movies were invented. So I remember seeing most recently The Last Jedi, when Holdo made that maneuver into the ship, and then it all went silent, and that thing was split in half. I remember being at a press screening, and the silence and the reaction from the press, hands on heads, mouths wide open, eyes ablaze, looking at what the visual that Rian Johnson put on screen from that moment. I remember that moment. And of course, Avengers Assemble. How are you not going to lose your mind in an experience like that, for sure? But I remember Paranormal Activity. The first time I saw Paranormal, I remember I literally crawled behind the seats because it was so fucking scary. I just was crawling behind the seats. It affected me so much. And I remember that night I got maybe 3 hours of sleep, and I closed every door in my apartment that I was living at the time because I was so damn scared from that movie, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not a horror fan at all, so that would probably keep me up till today. I'd probably still be afraid of it.
You get it. Justin Toner says, hi, John and Brad. So nice to have the boat on the nation tonight. Wanted to know what Brad is liking about what's going on in WWE and AEW. Are you watching NXT? Favorite matches or shows? Also, congrats to Outlaw Nation's Brennan Marr for winning in the FCL today. So let's make that switch now. Brad, into the WWE, AEW, NXT. Like, what are you focusing on? What's standing out to you? What's grabbing your attention, both good or bad, right now in the world of professional wrestling?
Yeah, it's been an interesting time to be a fan, because wrestling is an art form that is predicated on audience response. And when you do not have that instant feedback from an audience, it is hard as a performer of any kind, stand-up comedian or anything. If you don't have that instant feedback, it's hard to know if what you're doing is working or not. Yeah. Right? And I think that the Thunderdome has had its goods and bads in the realm of wrestling. It's good because it's giving WWE the freedom to try things. Yeah. Right? To see, hey, look, let's throw this at the wall and let's see what's going to happen, because we don't have to worry if the audience is going to cheer it or boo it out of the building. We can kind of control that, and let's just see if it works. If we weren't in a pandemic era, you would never see the things that Alexa Bliss is doing right now. I don't think they would ever have attempted it. They would never do things like that. The zombie thing, right? You would have never seen that if we weren't in a Thunderdome era. So
Yeah.
it has given them that ability. I do think overall the product has suffered in the pandemic times.
Yeah.
It hasn't been as compelling as it can be. I think that some of it is almost like a Groundhog's Day, to where I don't know if they sometimes remember what's going on from week to week, and everything kind of feels the same when you have Drew and Bobby going at it for months and months and months, essentially doing the same thing every single week. It can get a little bit draining. So that's kind of been the bad of it. But I'm looking so much forward to their first show back with a crowd. It's going to be here in Houston, Texas, July the 15th for a SmackDown. And I can't wait to see what the audience feedback is, what they love, what they hate, what they cheer, what they boo. It's going to be on the edge of my seat. But you know what, man? I'm a wrestling fan, right? So it's like, even bad wrestling I like because I'm a wrestling fan. It's just like your favorite sports team. If I'm a Rockets fan, we've had some great seasons recently. Most recently, we've had a pretty terrible season. But at the end of the day, I'm still a Rockets fan. I'm going to watch. And that's how I feel about wrestling. It goes through these periods of highs and lows, or for lack of a better term, these hills and valleys, if you will. And sometimes it's really, really good. Sometimes it sucks. And you just kind of wade your way through that. Big fan of AEW. I like what they're doing. I like an alternative. I think some of it, for me, especially like the tag team stuff, I can't really get behind fully like other people can, because I am somewhat of a traditionalist. But I've loved everything. And the fact that we have the $1 Million Championship, my favorite looking title in the history of wrestling, back on television, I got to love that too. So NXT has been killing it. Obviously, got a few graduates of the reality of wrestling over there.
That's great.
Zeta Remier, I think is how they're saying her name on NXT. She was AQA for us, but Zeta has been crushing it over there. Indy Hartwell's come through our doors. A lot of people from reality wrestling too have been on AEW Dark, Will All Day, Cameron Cole, a few others. So it's been a great time to be a fan or really work in the industry because there's more options.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible to see how much pro wrestling is out there, man. I mean, so almost every night of the week you can watch some form of pro wrestling, some federation, something, and it's mind-blowing to think about how much there is. So the interest is clearly there. And I remember, man, it wasn't but a few years ago when people would make fun of you for watching pro wrestling or make fun of you for having a shirt on. Now it's like in the pop culture mainstream again. And you're right, this idea of whether it's good or bad is obviously debatable. You cannot escape the COVID effect on it all, and how that's affected the product. Some and just like any time, some wrestlers have thrived under this situation. Like Bayley has never been better, in my opinion, than she has been during the COVID time. And
as a character,
right? exactly. No, she's an incredible wrestler, period. But as a character, she seems to be almost reborn. I mean, that ding dong hello thing I'm loving that shit. And she's great at it. And then you're watching other wrestlers not quite step up to the plate. But I like the idea that it forces these companies to kind of think on their feet, to think on their toes. Because you remember, at the foundation, at the basis of all professional wrestling it's essentially carnival. So you've got to go from town to town and impress people in some way, and trouble, conflicts, issues always arise no matter what town you go to. But the show must go on. So you got to figure out how to put on the show. And we've seen some really great attempts at trying to make it work. Is it working 100%? Not all the time, but at least it's there for you to watch if you want to watch it. And I think that's a positive at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying too. I mean, you have to have that. You have to take risk in wrestling too. But sometimes like the fans, I can look at this from like both perspectives. I always look at wrestling first as a fan. Did I like it or did I not? Then I try to think about it on a higher level. And sometimes you don't realize you have this great idea starting off. Yeah, like you write this idea, you come up with this angle, and you start it, and it starts off well, and then 4 or 5 weeks go by. There's so many factors that can change what your initial vision was, right? Whether the fans aren't reacting to it, whether there's social media backlash, so you want to appease the social media audience, so you change it on the fly. And that's what leads to some of this 50-50 all over the place booking that we sometimes are like, why did they do that? You don't know. The guy could be hurt or the girl could be injured. They couldn't have shown up that week. There's all these things that can happen that I've seen happen even at the scale and reality of wrestling, to where it alters what your original vision would be. So I'm a little bit more lenient than most sometimes to wrestling, because I know what can happen behind the scenes. But at the same time, if it sucks, like it sucks.
Yeah.
And you got to say, hey, that sucks, right? Like you have to be honest about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love really doing the show with Booker is Booker, although employed by the WWE, he'll still say, I wasn't feeling that. That wasn't great. You know, and we'll talk about it and we'll have an honest conversation about it. And that's how he's always been. It's how I'm always going to be is looking. I look for the good first. Like, what did I like? And then, you know, we deconstruct it from there.
That's one of the things I like about Booker, you know, is that when his criticism comes aboard, it's not just criticism to set it on fire and burn it to the ground. It's criticism to be like, I wasn't feeling this, and this is why. I wasn't on board, and this is why, you know, and because he's been around the business for so long and been successful in multiple federations, that's why you give his point of view way more weight, way more credit than some Yahoo with a YouTube channel. Someone who's been there behind the scenes, someone who's been there and performed, someone who's gone through multiple characters and been in multiple federations. They understand how certain people think or work and what storylines are effective and what aren't. And so he can actually opine with way more knowledge. And so you kind of take those points of views and you know, put more weight into them for sure when you're looking at it yourself or analyzing later for sure. It's one of the great things about Booker. How is he feeling about what's going on in the world of pro wrestling? Has he kind of given you you know, one way or another, leaning one way or another, or what he'd like to see more of at this point?
Well, you know what? And I agree with him on this. Wrestling, when you were coming up and when I was coming up, which is there's a generation gap, but it was the same even in the late 90s going into the early 2000s too, is wrestling was always about big guys.
Yeah.
Right? And we did lose that element. We lost the big guy element. And I'm not saying they have to be warrior, roided up, jacked up, you know, shaking the ropes and do like 2-minute matches or whatever. But when you see, like the first time I saw Booker, I was like, holy hell, this guy's massive, right?
Yeah.
Like he's huge. And that's what you want in your wrestlers. You want them to look like these superheroes come to life. And, you know, any wrestler I met from back in the day, I'm always like shocked by how big they are. And then when I meet wrestlers who are my contemporaries who come through reality wrestling or when I'm backstage at the WWE shows or AEW shows or wherever, I'm always like, oh, okay, like I'm a little taller than you are. I think I probably weigh a little bit more than you do. And that's fine. I'm not saying that like you can be whatever shape and size, but for me, the big guys are still an appeal. And for Booker, I think it's the same. That's why I don't think there's a more compelling match you can make right now in the WWE than Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. It just seems like a heavyweight clash that has to happen, that would have happened in the Attitude Era, that would have happened in the golden years of Hogan.
Totally.
Like, that would have been the match that everybody was waiting for, the way they were waiting for Hogan and Andre to see what happens when the immovable force meets the irresistible object or whatever Gorilla said back in the day. Those are the matches that appeal. I always heard this thing. We got to work with for several years, and I loved every second of it. Got to work with Bruce Pritchard, also known as Brother Love. He's now an executive back with WWE, Vince's right-hand man. And I would ask him all kinds of questions about production, about wrestling, about Vince, because I think Vince is this enigmatic figure that everyone has a story about, and I try to figure out his thinking sometimes. But Vince had this thing that he called the airport test. And when they'd get off the plane and wrestlers were going to get their bags, he would see how many people stopped and turned at a guy when he walked by them.
Wow.
If they would turn around and look at you as you passed, Vince would say to Bruce, all right, he's going to be a star, right? Because they passed the airport test where somebody has no idea who you are. They have no idea what you do, but they know that you're somebody. They know that you're somebody. Like, I don't know if that guy, I don't know if he plays in the NFL, the NBA, or I don't know what he is, but he's somebody. Yeah. And that was like that airport test. And I feel like with the bigger wrestlers, they passed that airport test, and it would make the layman say, hey, you know, I know that like wrestling is a show or all that, but I wouldn't want to cross that guy in a dark alley, right? Nobody has brought more legitimacy to this industry in the last several years than Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Like Brock beating Undertaker, when you look at it, makes the most sense because who could legitimately beat the Undertaker?
Right.
That guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you saw the reaction
in wrestling.
Yeah,
more big guys in wrestling.
We're seeing that. Absolutely. Bobby Lashley. I mean, how impressed have you been by the Bobby Lashley turn, man? I mean, because I mean, it was what, a few years ago, there was no way people were going to accept him going for the belt. And it's been incredible to see his progression in the WWE. And I was one of those people that was like, there's no way this guy would be a boring champion. And I don't know if it's just timing, a guy maturing, a guy understanding the business more, a guy figuring it out, or it's just something unlocking. All of a sudden, he's been incredible as the champion, incredible on the mic, incredible with the storylines. All the things that were working against him are now working for him in the situation that he's in. I mean, Roman Reigns is another one too.
Yeah.
Impressive to see the turnaround as well. What do you credit that to? Do you think it's like just timing and just being around, hanging around, then boom, the doors open and it's the right time?
I think timing's a part of it. I do. I also think this, though. I look at Bobby coming back, right, to WWE. I'm like, okay, so what has he done since he came back? They put him with, what was my man's name? Leo Rush.
Oh, Leo Rush.
They put him with Leo Rush.
Yeah.
They had like a little buzz or something, and then it kind of went away. Then they put him with Lana, and that just wasn't the right angle for him.
Yeah.
Then they put him with MVP, a guy who he trained with, a guy who they rode the towns together. They were together in Impact Wrestling. They came down here. Booker had a hand in training Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
And MV is here in Houston. He lives in Houston.
Right.
So they had camaraderie. And MVP just understands the performance of the promo and the character on screen. Right. And he did for Bobby what Paul does for Brock. And I think MVP being put with Bobby is what did it for him.
Right.
Is MV started talking that real talk, like he really made you feel a certain way. Then they came up with the Hurt Business. You have Shelton Benjamin. You have Cedric Alexander. That act was killed way too early, by the way.
I agree.
Way too early. The Hurt Business was awesome. And you actually had people say, you know what? I mean, Bobby looks pretty good against Drew. Like, I like that matchup. And when Miz beat Drew for the title with the cash-in, I obviously said, okay, it's going to Bobby. And then I would have thought, oh, well, the obvious thing is give the title to Bobby. Then you let Bobby and Drew at Mania, which happened, but Drew wins and he gets his big welcome back WrestleMania crowd moment that he didn't have the year prior. And when they didn't do that, that is them listening to the audience. And they're always criticized for not listening. That was them listening to the audience. That was them saying, hey, everyone's really digging Bobby as champion. Why stop it so far? Like, we can go back to Drew. Drew's going to be there. Like, we just had his run for a year. Let's see where this Bobby thing can go. So I think that it was a matter of timing for him and then getting MVP. And that was the package that put them in the right direction to the title.
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to walk into this minefield a little bit with you, Brad, and feel free not to answer if you don't feel comfortable answering. But do you also think it's timing here as well? Not just Bobby figuring things out, but also on the heels of the Black Lives Matter movement, calling out so many different places for some of the treatment they've had historically through the years towards their black actors or black actresses, black athletes, black performers, black professional wrestlers. We heard that's why so many people were emotional with Kofi Kingston won the title, like that, the legacy of that. And now Bobby's sliding in and it's working. Do you think that's also just the timing? The pop culture itself, the mainstream is more open now to accept this as an avenue to explore in higher numbers than they were before, especially in the professional wrestling world, which we know is mostly red state fans. Do you sense that they're more open now? Do you sense professional wrestling is more open now to embrace people of color having the straps for longer periods of time? The knock on Sasha was she would win it and lose it the next night. It was so frustrating. So Sasha got an extended run. Bianca's there now as the champion. Bobby's there as the champion. This feels like a sea change for the WWE, don't you think?
Yeah, it definitely has that feel. And look, here's the thing. I mean, what happened a summer ago with all the protests and everything, to say it didn't have an impact on everybody in every business, in every walk of life, in every form of entertainment and on down, I think it would be silly to say that it didn't have an impact. I mean, it had a huge impact on me just personally. Being able to look at things from a whole different perspective and listening and understanding more than I ever have at any other point in my life. So I think it had a massive impact on everybody. And I'm sure that it could have had an impact on the reason that Bobby became champion. I don't know that. I mean, I have no obviously inside information, but if it changes anybody's perspective at all, which we know it had to, perhaps it had an impact. How much, what percentage do I attribute that to? I don't know. But I think that it's awesome to see more people represented. You know, Booker's always said being a wrestler wasn't really the way out in the community, right? You were either going to be a ball player or you were going to be, a musician of some kind, a rapper or whatever. He said wrestling wasn't really the way out. And it's awesome to see how many, not only how many black performers there are, but how many exceptional black performers there are in the WWE who are being recognized for such. Bobby, Bianca, Sasha, even Shelton and Cedric getting their run with the belts. That means so many people who have always been awesome are now getting a light shown on them, which I think is fantastic. And you know what? It could make the next generation of African-American performers be inspired by what they're seeing on television now, which is cool, man. Everyone should have somebody that looks like them. I mean, we actually were just talking about, there was always a lot of talk about, black champions, first black champions. And then there was talk of, we know that was a thing for a while, but not a lot of people talk about the Latino representation in the main event picture. And, Eddie Guerrero was actually the first Mexican WWE champion. There's only been 2 since. Rey Mysterio and Alberto Del Rio. And it's cool, though, to at least have those figures that can be representative of different communities. And I think it's awesome that the Samoans and even Yokozuna was, I guess, supposed to be Japanese.
Supposed to be Japanese.
If you were a kid and you thought he was Japanese and you were a Japanese kid, maybe you were inspired by Yokozuna. I mean, I don't know, but it's just awesome to have representation all the way around. And I think that more people understand how important it is for everyone to feel like they have somebody to root for.
I mean, I have a special affinity for any of the Latino players in the Schmoedown, like as a foundational piece. And I think I can say that without being without putting any kind of cocky tone to it. A foundational piece of the Schmoedown. I represented my community with pride. Like I wanted to do something for myself, but also for the Latin community, because we rarely get a shot to be champions. We rarely get a shot to be in positions like this. So in a situation like that, there was a little extra weight in all the stuff that I was doing. And now seeing all these guys coming through, it's been great to see more and more Latino competitors. I want to see some Latinas getting in and shaking some shit up. I want to see that happening in the FCL and in the Schmoedown as well. I want to see all of that, and I'm in support of it. Doesn't mean I don't want to look at any of the white competitors. Not at all. It's a matter of let us get represented and let us get a shot at all these things. And you're right about that in professional wrestling as well, especially the WWE. I think they don't do the best job with the luchadors. It seems to not know what to do with them. But people like Alberto and Eddie and Ray, they somehow can figure it out there. So hopefully more opportunities will be there for everybody of color and on down the road, because it is. Right now, you could argue this is maybe the most diverse the WWE has ever been, or AEW or NXT. It's incredible to watch up and down the roster how diverse it is.
It's a reflection of the times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just 100% is a reflection of the times, in the same way that the Attitude Era was a reflection of the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
I mean, it was edgy, Jerry Springer, Howard Stern, scantily clad women.
Right.
I mean, the female performers were essentially eye candy, and not a whole hell of a lot more. You had your couple, Lita and Trish Stratuses and Ivories, who would try to go out there and give the people an actual match. But for the most part, I mean, look, we were at the Hall of Fame a couple years ago, and Tori Wilson went in, and Tori Wilson said, "Look, I know I got a lot of y'all through puberty." You know what I mean? Like she was aware of what her role was, right? Like
she was
back then, right? And that's what it was. So I think that what we're seeing now is just a representation of what we're going through as a country, as a nation, as a world, as a global community. And I think it's awesome. And you know what? I also want to shout out Omos, who's a tag champ with AJ.
Oh, yeah.
Apollo Crews, the IC champion. So
love Apollo Crews.
Yeah, Apollo's another guy who had a switch just flipped.
Yep.
To where he went from somebody I had literally zero interest in. I had zero interest in him. And then all of a sudden, he's somebody who you must see. He's must see. So, shout out to everybody.
It's finding the right gimmick, right? Like he was great in NXT, and then he got lost in WWE. They didn't know what to do with him. They put it, like you said, they put him with Tyson. They put him with all these different things. Didn't really work out. It isn't until he embraced those Nigerian roots that all of a sudden that switch clicked, and all the best things that he can do all got put together in one angle and one character, and he's knocking it out of the park. He's been fantastic. On the heels of that, Chris Taylor asks, Gilmore, your thoughts on Big E? I want to see him get that Money in the Bank briefcase.
Yeah, no, Big E is another interesting one, man. I mean, he is somebody who I said, oh man, this could be the guy. You know what I mean? Like when I was looking at New Day, when you look at a faction of any kind, you always say, okay, who's going to be the breakout? Right. And normally it's one. And sometimes there's, exceptions to those rules. But Big E was somebody I said, okay, this could be the dude. And then when he got his shot over on SmackDown to kind of break away from the New Day and be himself, Big E, the first show I see him in, he's rolling down the ramp. Yeah. Like a log, right? Or whatever, And and to me, I was like, that's a step in the wrong direction. Right. It's a step in the wrong direction. I know that, we talked about it on our show, and I wanted to see him be a little bit more of a badass. And you can be funny. You can be funny and entertaining and still be a badass. The Rock is the greatest example. Yeah. The Rock would go out there, talk about pies and strudels and shining things up and sticking them up wherever, right? And he would just say things like, I remember a few years ago, he was on Raw and he was talking about llama penis. Yeah, right? Llama penis, man. Llama penis. But when the bell rang, you knew that was The Rock. Yeah. And you got it. You're going to take him seriously because he is going to beat your ass if you let him, if you give him an inch. And with Big E rolling down the ramp, I think that was like the wrong move for him. Yeah. And for me, if I was like the promoter, I'd say, okay, maybe this guy isn't just ready yet. But since then, since that moment, he has started to shed the New Day elements, right? He started to shed some of those New Day elements. He's still entertaining when he needs to be. Right. But he tightens it up when the bell rings, which is where you need to really be the guy. Yeah. So could he be a world champion someday? Sure. Is he my pick to win Money in the Bank? I'm not so sure. But I wouldn't be mad if they did it. I wouldn't be mad at all. Me, I'm like a conspiracy theorist. I think they're going to give it to Drew, and then Drew's going to find a way. Really? That's what I think. I feel like if you do Brock versus Bobby at SummerSlam and say Brock wins. Yeah, and then Drew cashes in on Brock. The same. I don't know. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't want it. Trust me, I'm not rooting for it. I'm not rooting against Drew. I'm not rooting against Drew either. I like Drew McIntyre. Me too. Another big guy who feels like a legitimate threat. Yeah. But I think that he can be on the back burner a little bit until we find out what's next for him. But as far as Big E, who knows? I mean, he could win it. We'll see.
What about the Maharaja, man? Give my man his props. Give Jinder his shot at a title, for God's sakes. You brought him back. Give him his reality guy. I mean, Booker talks positively about Jinder, doesn't he? Yes. Yeah. Jinder was released in 2014 or 15, something like that. And he was a Houston guy. So I remember Booker called and said, hey, I want to use Jinder on some of the shows. So we got to use him before the 90 days were out or whatever. Yeah. And Jinder was there for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months. And the thing about him is he did not come in like a superstar. He did not come in like a guy who came from WWE. This man was over there before the show tightening up the ropes, helping the ring crew. Wow. He's sitting silent for the entire meeting, staying after. He was like one of the last guys to leave the show. And when I saw that, I said, oh, this guy's going to get back in WWE because he's got the right mentality, right? He understands the game. And when he came back and he was jacked, to the gills. I mean, he was just ripped. I said, oh, man, he could be something. And I was rooting for him to be the WWE champion. And I don't know if he had like the greatest run ever as a WWE champion, but he didn't have a bad run. No, it's not like something that I was like, oh God, why did they do that? Right. I thought that, it just wasn't the exact right timing maybe for him. I'm not sure, but I think that he's a believable dude. He's a believable dude. The thing is this, anybody can get over. Anybody can, so long as they're booked in the right way. You can make a bear hug
the end all be all finish.
Yeah.
If you give it to somebody and they put someone in the bear hug, they're not kicking out of the finish. They don't break the finish up. You know, when he puts that bear hug on, it's a wrap, right?
Yeah.
You can get anything over so long as you treat it with seriousness and you do it and see it through with fidelity. So Jinder Mahal, I like his work. He doesn't do anything flashy. He doesn't do anything great, but he does everything good.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's not like the greatest promo of ever, but he's a good promo. He's not the greatest wrestler in the world, but he's a good wrestler. And the thing that he has that other people don't is size and look. Yep. His look makes you go, oh, that's probably somebody. So don't hinder Jinder, man.
Don't hinder the Jinder, man. Don't hinder him, for God's sake. I want to see my man back in. I want him to come up with some, like those Indian matches they were coming up with. I was like, this is great. This is brilliant.
Punjabi prison.
The Punjabi prison. Hell yeah, man. Yeah. Put it together. I love it. So hopefully, you know, there'll be another run for him. And maybe he'll be one of those guys, once again, that gets brought back and the switch clicks on and it's the right time and the fans get really behind it. Drew McIntyre was one of those guys before we, you know, he's going to go in the back burner probably for a little bit, but he had an incredible story coming back. I love that promo they did. I think it's a WrestleMania where he's like pushing the boulder up the hill and he's got the two huge broadswords. That was badass, man. I was like, that's so good. So, you know, they can do it. Like you said, anybody can get over. I do want to ask you about the Booker T biography on A&E. I'm telling you, I think that's my favorite one of all the A&E ones that have been around. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the show or because I love Booker. Like, it's a fantastic documentary, man. Booker, like, speaking the truth from moment one all the way to the end. What did you think about that doc?
Man, you know, I sat there, and again, you got to realize, I've been with Booker now almost a decade, about 9 years. And I've heard a lot of his stories, and I've asked him a bunch about his upbringing and things that have made him the person that he is today. Because to me, at the end of the day, he's a friend and he's a mentor. He's everything in between. And sitting there and watching that story play out in front of millions of people on A&E was something for me that was almost like, oh, this is the guy that I talk to on a daily basis? Like, he did all of this? He went through all of this? Because you got to understand, I came and I met Booker in 2012, like right as he was finishing his in-ring career officially and was transitioning into the next part of his life. So to see somebody who you know in one respect in this entire different environment and had this entire different life before you met them, right? We always think that when we meet somebody, that's where our understanding of their life starts, which it does, but their life has been going on for much longer than you've known them. And to see the struggles that he went through and the adversity that he had to overcome and going to prison and your father dying when you're 10 months old, your mother dying when you're 13 years old, being the youngest in your family, having to rob and steal just to get by, and then getting locked up and having to get out. You know, he told me this one time where he said he got out of prison and he had to get his son out of foster care. And he said at 22 years old, I had to make the decision to become a man, you know, be damned all the mistakes that I've made up to this point. I need to now become a man. Like, I have to do it. And he said he didn't expect one person to trust him coming out of prison. He had to earn his right and everything he had. And I think that when you look at it, it wasn't a wrestling documentary. It was a documentary about somebody who made something from nothing and really was the embodiment of the American dream. Everybody else's documentary I loved. But they were all wrestling documentaries, right? And they all were like one of two things. It was either like I was a football player and then in college and then I decided to break into wrestling, or it was, you know, I got into wrestling and then I got into drugs, and it was almost like everybody's story was kind of like the inverse of Booker's, right? To whereas they started off good and then they had some big trauma that happened to them, you know, whether it be Macho or Ultimate Warrior or Roddy Piper or even Shawn, Brett, all these things, right? Like they all have this great crescendo and then toward the end of the story, it goes down. Whereas Booker's, it was like, he's starting down here, and at the end of the documentary, he ends up on the high. And I thought that that was such a cool thing to see, and it was inspiring to me just to know no matter what your circumstances are, you can make it happen. Right. So long as you just do what you're supposed to do. I mean, he said he was sweeping warehouse floors, right? And he said, look, I'm going to do this job to literally the best of my ability. I'll be early, I'll stay late. And because he did that, the guy who ran the warehouse said, okay, I'm going to sponsor you to go to wrestling school. And that changed his entire life. And it's all about perspective. And I thought that one was really an out-of-body experience, watching this man's story in that 2-hour format. It was great. I loved it.
You're absolutely correct, man. It's life lessons all over the place during that format. People who are in a certain, maybe in a certain spot in their lives, or they're like wondering if it's the right thing. They're hating their job, or that whatever it is. Here's the thing, and here's the approach, right? It's very much a martial arts approach. Whatever you're doing it to the best of your ability develops a pattern, so that when you get to the place where you are doing what you want to do, you're already prepared to handle it in the correct way, to have the right mentality walking into the game. So it was a fantastic documentary that dropped a lot of life knowledge on people, and I hope people who watched it took something out of it that they can use later on in life. Because also Booker's story is powerful because he was always working. He is a worker. Even when when WWE said, you know what, you guys could just sit on your asses and make your money, Nash and Hall sat on their asses and made their money. Booker T was like, no, man, put me in a storyline. I need to work. I'm a blue-collar guy. And why is that? Because he was sweeping floors, man. He went through jail. He went through that situation. So he knows for him, working is life, and that matters to him, and it's of value. So he didn't want to just sit around making money and doing nothing, and he wanted to work, and that's a powerful thing to have in a mental, a powerful place to get in a mental frame of mind, man.
He took a 50% pay cut.
Yeah.
to go to WWE, a 50% pay cut. But then the thing is, he was rewarded.
Yeah,
he was rewarded. He got there. His first 2 storylines.
Dude,
we're against Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock.
He hurt Stone Cold. Like, I love that part of the documentary. It could have all gone awry, but he took the bumps. He took the things people said, the abuse sometimes maybe he suffered because of that, and just kept working and eventually turned the tide on people's feelings about him. But you're right. And certainly Vince must have seen something great in him to put him up against The Rock and Stone Cold for sure. You're right about that.
He said to me one time that the day he got there, he walks back in Gorilla and Linda McMahon's there. And she said to him, "We finally got you."
Wow.
Right? Like Linda McMahon was even somebody who knew the talent that Booker brought. And she was excited to see him there. And again, they got to see something in you if they say your first 2 angles are going to be with Steve Austin and then The Rock.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of saying where Vince thinks, what he thinks of you.
Exactly.
And Booker was a consummate performer. You could put him in any position, give him anything, and he's going to make it work. This is one of those rare, and obviously, people might think I'm being biased, but he's really one of those rare, almost 5-tool players in wrestling, to where he's got the look, he's got charisma, he had the catchphrases, he had the signature moves, he had the great finisher. He could also be the ultimate athlete, be completely physical, believable, give you a 5-star match with everybody from the Big Show on down, right? It didn't matter who was against him. He understood how to present and perform in the best way possible. And I think that's why only somebody like him could have pulled off King Booker.
Yeah.
He's only one.
Only 2 people, and I don't include Lawler because he already had that gimmick, but only 2 people have ever made King of the Ring work for them in terms of a character adjustment. Randy Savage and Booker T. Those are the only 2 who ever made it work. And I would argue that King Booker is just a little bit higher than what Randy was able to do with the King thing. And it was amazing because Brett, they gave him gimmicks that for other wrestlers would have sank him. And Booker always made it work. Always found a way to make it work because of his natural charisma, his natural charm. The fans couldn't help but enjoy him. And that's a positive, man.
I mean, you could have given him anything, and the King Booker, I do think he's the best king ever who got the gimmick because he won the world title. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He won the world title as an African American man from Houston, Texas, putting on a British accent, wearing a cape and a crown and a scepter. And they gave him the world title because he got it over.
Yeah, he did.
He got it over
where the pinky up.
King Booker. He got it all over. You know what I mean? And to where they said, we don't have a choice. We have to put the title on him.
Yeah.
We have to. He's the most overact we have.
and bringing his wife in, bringing Sharmell, and they made that work. It was so great to see it all together for sure. As Chris Taylor says, he says, Booker T on the Outlaw Nation Show. Who do we talk to about this? Well, I'll probably have to get a few more subscribers before we can make that happen. But you never know, Chris. You never know. Let's hit some Streamlabs here. We're at the hour mark now. If you haven't sent in some Streamlabs super chats, I hope you're enjoying the conversation. Send in some support. Send in some love for sure through the Streamlabs. The address is pinned to the chat. It's in the description, and it's right above our heads over there. Alan Smithy says, hey, Goat Law and Boat. Good to see Brad with the Outlaw Nation. Brad, if you were a trivia competitor, aside from Back to the Future, what category would you choose as a strength? Also, what's your favorite Zemeckis movie aside from Back to the Future? I enjoy used cars. All right, what do you got?
Okay. So I'll take the first part first. You know what? Weirdly enough, I've been watching these IG categories. I do really well in a swashbuckling adventure. And then if I was outside of IG, it would be Bond. I would be James Bond. James Bond's like my love. I mean, that Bond to me is some days it's neck and neck with Back to the Future with how much I love those films.
Wow.
Continue to love those films. And so that is one where it was fun to compete in an exhibition match against Tim Franco and Mike Kalinowski and Bond. About a year ago, whenever that was. It was a lot of fun. So those would be those two strengths. And favorite Zemeckis that isn't Back to the Future. I love Romancing the Stone.
Okay.
Love Romancing the Stone.
Good choices.
You got to say Forrest Gump because it's just, the cultural impact of Forrest Gump. But man, Castaway. Castaway gives me all the feels, man. I really love Castaway. When I was a kid, I saw that movie in the theaters, and I remember going home and getting a volleyball out of my closet and drawing my hand on it to carry Wilson around. Like, it was a big deal. I remember Blockbuster sold little antenna things. Like, remember how people used to put stuff on their antennas in their cars? They sold little Wilson antenna balls that you could put on the... I remember that. So those that would probably be the answer there.
I think Castaway is a great choice you bring up. I would argue that Tom Hanks's performance in Castaway was better than anything he did in Forrest Gump or Philadelphia. That was the one movie to keep an audience's attention for an hour and a half with barely saying a word speaks volumes about your abilities as an actor, the attention that you can get from an audience, the way they're just captivated by what you're doing, and then to get them to cry when an inanimate object just simply floats away is incredible. And I was in the theater watching people cry. I was getting emotional just seeing Tom Hanks's, the depth of his pain as Wilson was floating away. It's incredible. So I would argue that he deserved the Oscar more for Castaway than any of the other two films. Even though he didn't get it, he certainly deserved it. And Zemeckis directed the hell out of that movie. That's a great choice, brother. Let's see here. What's we got? Canada Rocks is here as well. He says, first of all, congrats to Brennan on his win. Second, congrats to Brad for your success with the FCL. I think he's trying to butter you up a little bit so you can get a shot at this. What is the one thing that has surprised you the most about running the league? Good question.
Surprised me the most they were able to pull it off.
Facts.
You know what I mean? Honestly, I remember, again, when we got, I got hey, this, y'all gonna do this league, and then Christian and I were calling a match together, and we were taping it, and he was like, hey, by the way, before we do the match, just want to let you know we're thinking about March 30th as the debut for the FCL, and this is February 28th or something like that.
That sounds like Christian.
We haven't even reached out to competitors at this point, right?
Right.
So I remember then it was a mad dash, 4 weeks trying to get contracts together, characters, it all came together literally in 28 days. The actual league itself. So I was surprised that we've pulled it off. That's completely honest.
That's fantastic. Well, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt, rather, to have a great crew behind you.
Yeah.
Like you've mentioned numerous times throughout the show tonight. So shout out to all of them. I may give PLD some shit, but I know his talent is there and it's good and it works, and he's a great producer. And he's been nothing but kind to me whenever I'm on any show that he produces. He takes care of the people and the guests coming out of the show really well. So shout out to PLD. So, and Steph Sabra, that's my girl. So I got nothing but love to give to her. All right, so let's move on to the thing that's behind you there. That Back to the Future. You've had a book out. I have it on my bookcases here. It never leaves the bookcase. Are you working on anything else now? Are you in? There it is. What is it? Was that the book?
This is on audio CD.
Did you do it? Did you do it? Who did the voiceover?
Read it. I didn't read it. I didn't read it. And I don't know. You know what's funny is like they didn't even ask me.
What?
Like next thing I remember, I sent an email like, "Hey, so is there going to be an audiobook?" They're like, "Yeah, we just finished it." Whatever. But you know what? It probably been like the worst audiobook ever because I'm so. Having to read something that I wrote, I feel like I'd be like, oh man, I could have said this. Oh, I should have said it this way. So kinda, after I finished the manuscript and I sent it in, I said, okay, I'm never looking at this because when I sent it in, they're like, by the way, like as soon as you give us thumbs up, this is it. It's locked in. We can't change anything.
Right.
So I was like, okay, let me just send it and not read it, not think about it again, because I know it's going to drive me insane that I didn't. Oh, I should have talked about this, and that. So but you have it on audio if you want to get it.
Yeah, there you go. Are you working on anything else? Or did this book pretty much wipe you out? And you're going to wait to get inspired to write again a book about anything?
So I don't know if you remember this, but it was, I think after Spectre, to go to James Bond, Daniel Craig was doing an interview.
Yeah.
And he said, they asked him, are you going to come back to play Bond? And he said, I'd rather smash the glass on the table in front of me and cut my wrist than to ever play James Bond again.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that and be like, what the hell? Like, that's kind of aggressive, right? And then then I thought about, okay, what was going on in his mind? Okay, they just announced Spectre in January and they released it in like November. Right. They did it all in that year. It was probably the most grueling 10, 11 months of his life. So after I finished the book, I said, there's no chance on God's green earth I will ever do anything like that again. Because I did not like the process. I didn't enjoy it at all. Because really? I'm a collaborative human being by nature. I like working with people. Going back to my background in music, I was always working with people, right? Cultivating that. Working in wrestling, I'm working with people. We're coming up with ideas together. When I had to do the book, I'm sitting down and I was typing on the laptop that's right in front of me for hours on end in my room with Back to the Future on, pausing it, stopping, starting, rewinding, looking at things, reading through books, reference things, looking at the internet, cross-referencing, making sure I'm getting my facts right. And when I turned that in, I said, this sucked. Like the book I hope is good, but the process for me was terrible. I hated it. And then inevitably, a few months down the line after the book's release, I did something and I was like, oh, hey, that would be a cool idea for a book. so I can't, I'm not allowed to announce it yet.
Okay.
But there is a second book and the information about it will be released soon. And I will tease just this. I decided to talk to listen to my instincts and this time collaborate. So it is a collaborative project with somebody that will be coming out at the beginning of next year, and I should be able to announce it soon. I can announce, though, that Back from the Future, a celebration of the greatest time travel story ever told, will be available in paperback in January.
Oh,
and
that's
something
great.
That's cool. Yeah, that is something that's cool, man. I'll tell you this. I was in L.A. and then Seattle like a week ago, right? Yeah. I was in L.A. for a short period of time, and then we went to Seattle. And I said, you know what? Yeah, talking to my fiance, the float, and I said, you know what? Because in Texas, for some reason, no Barnes and Noble carried my book in Texas, which is
wow.
I don't know why, but not one. 48 other states decided to carry it, right? I guess we don't put a priority on reading down here or something. But when I was in California, I said, hey, I wonder if the Barnes & Noble up the road has my book, right? Like, I wonder if it has my book. So we went, and I got to see my book in a bookstore for the very first time, like 2 weeks ago. And then we went to Seattle. We saw the same thing. We saw it in the bookstore in Seattle. So that was really cool. So, yeah, paperback comes out in January. And then just keep it locked, man. When I can announce it, I will.
Yeah. Okay.
Love to announce.
Okay. All right. So you heard it here first. Him and Daniel Craig writing a book together. Who knew that was coming? Fantastic. Yes. And I'm glad it's going in paperback because now PLD can afford to buy it. That's great. I love it. It's going to be in paperback, a little bit cheaper there. We know what he makes on. Larry Lee says, 2 amazing Schmoedown rock stars. Oh, thank you, Larry. Very
Double
kind.
L. What's going on, Larry?
Good to see you, brother, man. Yeah. So, all right, let's see. Oh, yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's make a little detour into that, what you just mentioned here, the float. So what's this whole process been like for you? I mean, you're still a young man, and you know, she's absolutely beautiful. Certainly makes you smile. You both look fantastic together. How did this all come about, and when did you know that this was the right time to make this move in your life and ask this woman to be your wife?
Well, you know, man, Farrah is she's a special individual.
Yeah.
You know, I call her the float on camera, you know, just, you know, as a play on words, obviously. But, you know, we've been together now for 7 years, and I knew, I don't know if you've experienced this. I'm sure that everybody has, but when you start to date somebody, like pretty much the day that you start dating them, you realize if this is going to last or not.
Yes.
Right.
I'm one of those. Absolutely.
Or like, hey, I like this person. We're going to probably go for a minute, but I'm not going to marry this person.
Right.
Like, you know that off the rip. And I'd always felt that with every person I had dated. And then when Farrah and I got together, it was the first time I didn't see an end to the relationship.
Wow.
Like, I just didn't see it. I was like, because we were friends for a long time prior. Right. And so I just didn't see the end to it. And I tell you what, we got together officially at a New Year's Eve party at Booker T's house.
Awesome.
I invited her over, and she like didn't want to come, and then finally I convinced her. I was like, "Hey, come on," because we were friends, you know, and and then something magical about, I guess, the New Year's Eve day or what have you, and it being at Booker's house, it all worked, and we got together. And again, I just didn't see an end to it, and then it was cool as our relationship progressed to realize, wow, this is not only my romantic counterpart, this is actually my best friend. This is the person that I can't wait to tell the most exciting news in my life. This is the person that I can't wait to hear their advice on difficult situations that I'm finding myself in. This is the person who I can be 1,000% myself at all times and talk about the fears and the anxieties and the tributes and the triumphs and the failures and all this stuff. I couldn't wait to talk to her about it all. Yeah. And so after the pandemic was over, things kind of started to get, well, you know, pandemic was over in Texas like a year ago. I don't know. but you know, when it started to kind of, you know, around the world, started to, you know what I mean, starting to clean up.
In Texas and Florida, it only lasted a few weeks. In Texas and Florida.
It was like 12 days, and we were back to normal. What's a mask? But I just, you know, it felt like the right time. Obviously, we've been together a minute, but we got together when we were real young. Right. And I finally felt like I was at a place in my life where I was mature enough to take on the responsibility of being a husband and take on the responsibility of, you know, buying a home, raising a family, and wanting, you know, the next generation to come into, you know, fruition. And it felt right. You know, just like with everything, you know what I mean? Like when you do a good interview, it feels right. Yeah. Right. You can't explain it. You can't describe it. It's like the wind. You can't see it or hold it, but you can feel it and you know it's there. Yeah. Right. And that was what it was with Farrah from the get-go. And then this most recently thing, I was like, you know what? This is the time to take this relationship to the next level. I said, I don't want to, she's not going to be my girlfriend forever. You know what I mean? I gotta take the next step. And thankfully she agreed when I asked her. That would have been something.
Were you guys living together during the whole pandemic? No. Oh, wow.
No, not living together during the pandemic. And you know, those first couple of weeks of the pandemic, we didn't get to even be around each other at all. Wow. And then, you know, I mean, it was probably 2 weeks, I think, probably before we actually started to get together and then, you know, figure out how we were going to live in a pandemic world. Yeah. But, you know, the thing is, I am in a lot of ways a traditionalist. My father is much older than I. He's in his mid-70s. And I think he instilled a lot of those old school kind of values in me, and she subscribes to those as well, to where it's like, we'll live together once we're official.
Wow.
Once we're together.
So you haven't lived together at all?
No.
You're going to get married first and then live together.
Yeah. And I know the people in the chat, and maybe you too right now, are thinking, that's not a good idea, Gilmore.
Hey.
You don't know someone till you live with them. However, I do think that we'll be all right. And I'm just looking forward to that journey, probably more than I've looked forward to anything in life, right? I mean, I look forward to being a part of the Schmoedown. I looked forward to doing all the things that I've got to do in my career. But this one is like, I'm jumping for joy, excited to begin that. And that's what lets me know that it's the right move.
Hey,
and the right time.
You know what's important in life? You know, things are, that's the thing, as an older, not quite as old as your dad, but as an older guy, like I found my lady later in life. You know, I'd been looking for her for a majority of my life, couldn't find it. Just like, I mean, I used to know within within 5 to 10 minutes, 20 minutes at the most of a date, if it was going to be a relationship, just sex, or just something we're going to do for now.
Sure.
But I never really found that faith that this was going to be the thing until I met my lady Outlaw, right? And we're almost at 3 years now. But the same thing that's so overpowering is that, like, that's what matters. You know, I lose a match. When I lost to Ben, I was like a little down, and then she came up, and I was like, that's what matters, man. Yeah, that's going to suck for a day or two, but I have this, and that's what matters. That's my championship, you know, and that matters in life, and it allows you to kind of like have some perspective as you go into your career, as you go and try to accomplish things. Like, you know, you've got a really strong support system behind you and someone you can rely on. So I'm happy for you, man. And no judgment. Whatever works for you guys works for you guys. No one has the 100% right knowledge about what works, because everyone is different. And so you got to walk your path and see if it does work for you. So shout out to both you and Farrah for sure.
Yeah, man. And it's just awesome to have somebody, and I know you find this with your lady, but just somebody who they're your ultimate supporter.
Oh yeah.
Like literally your ultimate supporter. There's nothing that I've ever said, hey, I want to do this, and she says, I don't know if that's for you, right? Like she's always said, go for it. Like you can do anything, right?
Yeah.
And I feel the same about her. She is a really, it's probably both ways, but for me, she's an inspiration to me. I even texted her that today. I said, hey, just to let you know, you're just such an inspiration to me, because she's such a hard worker. She's a real estate agent, and she busts her behind every single day, grinding nonstop, 7 days a week, essentially, as you have to be in that industry.
Yeah.
And I know that I could never do what she does.
Right.
And to me, that's what inspires me. If I know I can't do what you do, that's why I have such a strong passion and love for everybody who served in the armed services, yourself included, Dwayne Burke. My family's all military, going back to my grandfather who's in World War II. Damn. I know this about myself. I'm self-aware enough to know I don't think that I have what it takes to serve this country. So I have the utmost admiration and respect forever for what people like yourself are able to commit themselves mentally to go do. It's incredible. Same for her. I couldn't see myself working as hard as she does in her respective field. So it inspires me, and I have respect for her. So it's a great two-way street that we have.
Yeah, and don't leave out G.I. Bro, who also served our country.
G.I. Bro, America's greatest hero.
He served our country as well, G.I. Bro, son.
Man, Nam was a crazy time.
But that's great too. I mean, it sounds like, because with Booker and her, you have two very hardworking people who are constantly sources of inspiration for you. So that must be something that like is a really powerful motivation for you, and a blueprint for what you want to do, man. What do you have goals right now? Do you have a vision board? Like, how does Brad Gilmore put things together? Dude, I admire you, man. I mean, what you've been able to accomplish, what you've been able to do in such a short time, at a young age. I mean, it's incredible how many things you've done, and you stick to your brand. You are what you are, and it's honest and it's authentic. And man, as a dude who watches you from the other side, man, I appreciate it madly. Do you have goals that you've laid out for yourself, or has your life already eclipsed the goals you had and now you've got to create new ones? Are you in that place?
Man, I have friends who would put together the vision boards and things like that, and it was great for them. And my friend Tay, I got to shout out my friend Tay. He would put these vision boards together, and he'd check these boxes off, and it would happen for him. For me, I've never had that ability, as ironic as this might sound, to look into the future. Right. I've never had that ability. I wish that I had it, but I never have. I've always kind of taken things as they've come. And I never had a plan to get into wrestling. It just happened. I never had a plan to write a book. It just happened. I never planned to be a podcaster and a host. I found myself in that. Right. It just one thing led to the next that led to the next. And then next thing you know, I'm talking to you right now. Yeah. So I don't have a big board, that says what my next thing is. I have no idea. I just know that I'm going to tackle the tasks that are in front of me. And, I did just enroll in grad school. Oh, wow. At the University of Alabama. Roll Tide.
Oh, that's right. I saw that. That's right. Because is it your grandmother that is that? What's the heritage for you family-wise?
My grandmother. So this is cool. My grandmother's from a city called Decatur, Alabama.
Oh yeah.
Which is northern Alabama. My great grandfather was the mayor of Decatur for like 30 years or something crazy like that. And Farrah got me a Christmas gift, Christmas 2019. I remember opening the gift, and I'd never been to Alabama, but I opened the gift, and it was a DVD of Sweet Home Alabama, and I was like, well, this is kind of a whack gift. Like in my head, I was like, what? And then she's like, open it, stupid. So like I opened the case, and it was 2 tickets to Huntsville, and then we were going to drive to Decatur, so I could see the place where my grandmother was born and raised, and that's awesome. Where family heritage is. Because my grandmother, like my parents and my grandfather, they were just everything to me. And so I got to go to Alabama for the first time, and then when I wanted to tackle grad school, I was looking at universities that offered the program. Right. And, I needed something that would be, I could do online or by distance or what have you. And I wanted to go to University of Texas, but I had to be in person. And then literally the next thing on the list was University of Alabama. And I was like, hey, man, look, that's the University of Alabama. I don't know how it's looked at across the entire nation, but it's essentially like the Ivy League of the South. If you go to the University of Alabama, that like you're something. They have like a 48% admission rate or something like that. So I saw University of Alabama, and I said, man, roll tide. Let's go ahead and do it. And I applied, and I got in about a week ago. So I'm going to be doing that in the fall. So that's an immediate goal of mine as well, and working on the next book, and continuing to live this crazy life that I never foresaw for myself, but glad that I found myself in.
What are you studying? What are you going to be studying there, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I was a communications major for my undergrad, for my bachelor's, and with an emphasis on rhetoric. Rhetorical communication, which I like to tell people means I talk and you listen. And so I'm going to continue that studies, and I'm going to get my master's in it, and then probably get my doctorate after that. That is a long-term goal of mine, to get my doctorate for no other reason than to piss my brother off. My brother's a psychologist, and he's a doctor in California. Shout out to Dr. Russell Gilmore.
Wow.
And, all right. Yeah. And so I just want to kind of like rain on his parade at the next Christmas. If somebody says, hey, Dr. Gilmore, I'm like, we can both like turn our heads. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the really, that's honestly, that's a motivation. And then for like the next book, for it to say Dr. Brad Gilmore would be cool on the bottom. But
I love that.
The simple things are what motivate me.
I feel like you should bring Yeah, I feel like you should bring your brother to Schmoedown. He'd have a field day with some of these competitors, I think, for sure.
I'm sure that he would
into a room.
He would love it. Yeah, he would. He'd probably have to start a whole another practice in Southern California to deal with all the personalities in the movie tree Schmoedown.
Well, real quick, what do you think about how this season has gone? We talked about WWE with the COVID situation. Christian made a lot of adjustments here. Now, we're seeing these announcements that's going to be coming back to in studio. SEN is coming back to in studio. What do you feel about how this season has gone? We're at the halfway point in essence, and we're looking at it's crazy to think about. We got like 5 months left in the season. Anything can happen. And the Finstock Exchange is still there at second place, fighting to get up there to maybe overcome
Crazy.
the Den. What do you think about this season, my man?
Man, when that draft night went down, and I'll be honest with you, I'm somebody who I pay attention to the movie trivia Schmoedown, right? I don't, and whether it's good or bad, I don't know a lot about anything outside of that in the trivia space, right? So I didn't know a lot of these fan leaguers and all these things like that. I've gotten to know them as part of the FCL duties, but I didn't at the time of the draft, right? So when I heard a lot of these names, especially about the Finstock Exchange, but all over the place, I was like, I don't know who a lot of these people are. If you go back and watch the draft, I would say, Jessica Sloth, big name. So what do we know about Jessica, Frank? And I put all on Frank Janish. Hopefully he knows everything because it was me, Ellis, and Janish. Yeah. So chances are Janish is going to know something before Mark and then I, right? Right. So I didn't know what to expect. I will say, man, a lot of great play. People have stepped it up a ton this season. Yeah. A lot more matches. For me, it's a little hard to keep up with because I am like such a person on the go all the time. Be able to watch all the matches before we do rundown is somewhat of a task for me at times, but I understand when you grow the league, you got to reach out, and have the tree roots and the leaves and all that extend out as far as that they can so that you can catch everything that catch the biggest audience. Did not think the Finstock Exchange would be doing as well as it's doing. I think that everybody thought the same.
Give us our flowers. Give us our flowers.
I got to, man. And I've said it on the rundown every week that we talk about the exchange. It's like, man, look, dude, they're doing it. They're doing it. Like you can't look, here's the thing. When Alex Rodriguez was dating Jennifer Lopez, people really hated him, right? And I know you're not a big J-Lo person, but I am.
I'm not a big A-Rod person either, but go ahead.
Right.
Yes.
But no, and I'm not either. Yeah. But I said, at the end of the day, you can't hate someone winning, right? And A-Rod was coming off of a World Series retirement and then going into broadcasting.
He's a great analyst. Great analyst.
One of the best ever in baseball. And then all of a sudden he starts bringing Jennifer Lopez around the set. I was like, this guy's a winner. Right. I can't hate a winner. Right. And so now, he's not winning so much. But at the time, big winner. Yeah. As far as the boat was concerned. So I can't hate greatness, and I don't hate on greatness. I aspire to it. Right. So Finstock Exchange has been killing it, and you have to give them y'all the credit where it's due. You put together a great team, and you and JTE, you and Barbarian and Tom putting together this dossier that's now become legendary. That when we have the Schmoedown wing in the Smithsonian, the dossier will be in as a part of the Schmoedown.
It will absolutely be encased.
It has to be. It has to be. You know what I mean?
If we pull this thing off and win the faction championship, it'd have to encase it absolutely in the
Christian needs a bronze it, and have it in studio. It's so crazy. So I give credit where credit's due always. Yeah. So y'all put together a great thing. I think the season's been fun. I can't wait to see the energy back in a studio match. Yeah, true. And be there live in person. I mean, going back to some of those main events, the last time I was on a flight before a couple weeks ago was during the was the Atlanta trip that we all took. And
that's right.
We came back on, I think, like February 29th. Yeah. And like right when we got back, everyone was like, hey, man, this COVID thing might shut everything down for a little while. It was just a couple days later. So that was my last trip. And I just remember the energy in that theater in Atlanta was so great. And I love live crowds. It's everything to me. I love being in front of people. This is fun. This is cool. I like being in front of people. Yeah. So when Steph and I got to do FCL live in front of like 4 people, it was Alex Marzonia, Dwayne, Roxy, and Farah. That was our audience. We loved it. It was so great, even in front of 4 people, to get out there and do something live and in living color and not be sitting in a room somewhere. So I think that when studio matches come back, you're going to see a change in certain competitors. I know not everyone's going to be in a digital environment, but I think that we're going to see people thrive in studio. Here's the thing. You know this better than anybody. John Rocha has a presence in studio. Yep. Right? Yep. Like I remember the first match I saw was top 10 versus top that in studio. And I remember there was a palpable energy in the room that was curated by yourself. And the thing is, when those two guys from Top That, Eric and Jim,
Yeah.
sat at the table, like you could tell there was a bit of an intimidation there from you because you're so laser focused in. I think that some of that element will return with the studio matches, which is going to have an effect on the outcomes of these matches. We talk about people who are just, comfortable in their own environment at home. What could Adam Collins do what he did to you if he was in studio? I don't know. But now we're gonna have that opportunity to find out.
Yeah, that's what's great about that, because that is an element that when you remove it from competitors who've been playing, in front of live people for like 7 seasons, it's a weird thing to cut out, and you're feeding off. You can't really do anything, intimidate somebody over virtual. But I mean, you got to give credit to Dan. Dan's been able to win in virtual or in studio, and that's an incredible thing to do. And it's not easy to do. I have my struggles with the virtual thing, man. It's weird. I can't do the normal. Like, I have to keep my hands up all the time, or there's accusations, and I'm like, I'm looking where I'm looking to get my knowledge back in my head, and I have my way of playing, but you can't do that, and it's so frustrating to cut off a piece of how you normally would operate in the studio. Go back and watch my matches, see how many times I'm doing this, see how many times I'm like this, or I'm out here. Like, it's just my natural movement, and to have that restricted is really, really tough. So getting back in studio, when it happens, will be fun. And if we get some, I hope we get some matches soon, because Rushmore, we made it to the finals, and we only lost by 1 5-pointer. So I think we should be getting some kind of a number one contender shot, or at least a play-in match to get to a number one contender shot. And hopefully it'll be in studio, because I'm ready to get back in there for sure.
But that element is changed all sports. Like, I think that the way that if you look at the playoffs in the bubble, NBA,
versus this year,
it's a completely different game.
Night and day,
different game.
Yeah.
So I think that that has an effect on everybody. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to the return of in studio matches.
All right, let's move on to one last thing. We got about 20 minutes left in the show. There's been a bit of controversy about Indiana Jones online. What is this all about, Brad Gilmore? I mean, Kalinowski loves to get heated at the drop of a dime.
Sure.
I know that. But this is something that him and PJ and you have been going round and round about. Temple of Doom versus Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And this is a very, energetic, shall we say, passionate debate. What is the fuel behind this debate, man?
Okay, so, again, this all emanated from a tweet. I was in Seattle. And I went to that Barnes & Noble to see if my book was there. And it was there. I was like, oh, man, this is awesome. And then in the same section, there was an Indiana Jones visual history or something.
Right.
So I was looking through it. And in my head, I was like, why do people hate Crystal Skull so much? I like that movie. And then I was thinking, you know what? I probably like it more than Temple. And I started going through Temple in my mind. And then I was going through Crystal Skull, and I was like, yeah. So I just tweeted. I was like, hey, I think Crystal Skull kind of kicks Temple of Doom's ass. Now, before I say anything more, my ranking is Last Crusade, Raiders, Crystal, Temple.
Right.
And some days it might change between Crusade and Raiders, but I think Crusade's my number one. So I'm not saying it was the best of the 4, but I was like, I don't really like Temple of Doom that much. So I tweeted that out, and then that's where the craziness occurred. But to me, I never understood, other than the swinging monkey thing with Shia LaBeouf. I understand that's not good, right? And the first 15 minutes of Temple of Doom, where there's the anything goes open, and he's kind of James Bond, and there's the whole diamond exchange with the antidote. I think that there's no 15 minutes in Crystal Skull that are better than those 15 minutes of Temple. I think that's a fair point. It's great. I love that. Once they get on the plane in Temple, it goes down pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
And then
I don't disagree with you, man. I'm with you on this one.
So then Crystal Skull, I'm like, what do people not like about it? Okay, they don't like the aliens. Okay, well, and I am a Christian, a Baptist, grew up in the church. So the thing is, I understand if some people want to lend more credence to the mystical elements of the earlier films, other than this sci-fi side of the aliens invading. But the thing is this: there was a arc that melted a dude's face off, right? There was a pit with snakes that had seemingly been there for thousands of years. I don't know how the snakes are alive.
Yeah.
They're in Crystal Skull. They're walking on an invisible bridge to a 3,000-year-old knight, or however old the guy is.
Last Crusade, you mean? They're walking
Last Crusade. I'm sorry,
not Crystal
Last Crusade.
Skull.
Not Crystal Skull. Last Crusade.
Don't want anybody coming for you in the chat.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That's Last Crusade, right? Okay. In Temple, they literally pull someone's heart out.
Yeah.
And they're still alive, right? Okay. So there's all kinds of things that aren't really rooted in reality. So when we look at Crystal Skull and people are mad about the aliens, I really don't make that connection. Then the other thing is the nuke the fridge.
Yeah.
Okay, the fridge thing. Okay. I'm like, that's what we're going with as the most unbelievable part of the Indiana Jones saga. The nuking of the fridge is the thing that you really want to say that wouldn't happen in reality. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that we're gonna really say, okay, well, oh my God, can you believe that they nuked the fridge? Was it the greatest idea ever? Sure, no, but they did it. Here's the thing, and I don't know if you know this. PJ pointed out it was in my book, or at least we discussed it in the podcast. That was originally the climax of Back to the Future.
Right. Yes.
The DeLorean wasn't a thing. It was going to be a refrigerator Marty traveled through time in, and they were going to take the refrigerator in a truck to a nuclear test site and then blow the refrigerator up and send him back for the 1.21 gigawatts or whatever, right? That was the original idea. So that's where it came from. Because Frank Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy and Steven Spielberg, all producers on Back to the Future, all involved either directing or producing Crystal Skull. So I was like, this is where we're really going to draw the line. The invisible bridge in Crusade we can go with, but a nuking of the fridge is a step too far. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't really, I didn't really ever understand the hate for the Crystal Skull movie. And the Indiana Jones film, although we view Temple of Doom, although we view it through a 2021, lenses, it still is rather problematic in a lot of ways.
It is.
Especially for, the Indian culture and the way it's depicted. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. It was done at a time. And I think a lot of times you have to view things at the time that they were done to try to understand, what the perspective was, right?
Right.
And whether it's right or wrong by today's standards, I just think that the film is dark, it's depressing, it's not fun. Like, there's other than that first 15 minutes, there's not a lot of fun in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Right. Whereas when you go to Crystal Skull, there's a lot of fun in that movie. Like, I enjoy the fun of it, right? Like, a lot of people don't like the sequel trilogy for the Star Wars. And I don't know where you sit on it, but I find them to be fun. Like, I'm not all in on the mythology of Star Wars, so I guess I can look at it more from a dumb fan perspective, I guess. But I had fun watching them. And when I look at Crystal Skull, I had fun watching it.
Yeah.
When I look at Temple Doom, I didn't have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm with you for different reasons. I mean, I do think it's a problematic film, and it was a problematic film back then. By the way, I found some articles as I was because I saw that tweet. It kind of inspired me to look at some stuff. The Christian Science Monitor in 1984 wrote a breakdown of Temple of Doom, calling it out for its sexism and its racism. And in 1984, so this idea that it's a film of its time, I think sometimes is a bit of a, I'm not saying you said this, right? I'm saying the people that do say this, I think it's a bit of a cop-out because remember, that's the 80s. It wasn't the Stone Age about racism. Like, we had Do the Right Thing, Mississippi Burning, The Color Purple. We had Eddie Murphy leading these films. We had Action Jackson. We had so many black performers. The Cosby Show, for lack of a, I know he's not the most greatest person now, but back then, we were opening the door, and we were coming out of the 70s where black entertainment was almost at an all-time high in terms of TV shows and movies and people you knew. Richard Pryor was like the greatest comedian until Eddie came along. And so the idea of being aware of other cultures, of people of different color, it was there. So I just think that what you had is entertainment executives that were almost all white and all male. And in their minds, they didn't have to pay attention to what they consider to be a third world country, India, or the Indian culture, defaulting them eating monkey brains. The way they talk about the gods in India is like, and then you have the white savior complex that Indiana has to be the only one who can save these stones and help these poor people and all of that. And then Short Round's accent, which just, you can go back and it just has issues. So I just think it was there. It's just, and people were saying stuff. It's just that the people in charge and the people in charge of entertainment weren't listening. And I think that's the separation there. People were complaining. It's just the people weren't listening. It's no different than the Washington football team, right? People have been having issues with the Redskins name since the 70s. Yeah. It's just that all of a sudden when the financial bottom line was challenged, then all of a sudden it's time to change the name, and that's the unfortunate truth. It's not about evolution or progression. It's about money, sadly.
Yeah. No, you are right about that, especially the Redskin name. I mean, my high school mascot was the Redskins. And then the year after I graduated, this was like, over a decade ago, they changed the name, back then. And it took the Washington football team all this time to be like, maybe. What do you want the name to be?
I like Warriors. I've always been,
Warriors is good.
Because that still honors, in essence, the Native American origins in terms of like, these were fierce warriors when called upon to defend their people and their land. So in a way, you can stay with that vibe, and it doesn't have to have a Native American connection at all. Move Native America. It's still Warriors is a badass name to have and what it implies. So to me, I like that. I don't think I've liked, I get the idea of the Red Tails or whatever, but I think that's pandering. I think that's Snyder pandering. And I don't really trust Snyder to have any kind of evolution on this topic. I don't care how many people of color he hires. I don't believe his heart has changed in any way, shape, or form, or how many women he hires. All those allegations, bro, you just can't ignore them. You can't ignore them.
I think the same with Cleveland. I think I know that I think they are changing their name, or
they are
at least
they put out a list. They put out a list of possibilities.
Did? They did. I didn't see that. The Cleveland Indians, as they're presently called. I always loved that team. I just love everything. I don't know. I just like the color schemes, and I think it looks cool or whatever. And going back to the Major League films, which I love. I'm an 80s fan, so love that. I don't know. Is natives on the list? Because I always said that would be like the obvious change for them. Oh, it's not.
No. It's like spiders and some other things, but terrible. No, nothing like that.
Spiders, the Cleveland Spiders. Oh my gosh, who is in the boardroom? That's what they were called when they were initially a minor league team. They were the Cleveland Spiders. They were in the minor leagues for a reason.
It's a fair point.
It's like I think what is our team here in Houston? We have a couple minor league teams. I can't remember, like the Hooks or something like that. And it's like
Houston Hooks.
I think it's something like that. I don't remember what it is, but it's not good. Whatever it is, it's not good. Skeeters. Oof.
What about let me see if I I don't know if there's a list of names. Have they said there's over 1,000 new names are being considered by the team.
Lord have mercy.
Apparently 1,000. That's
lot.
Madness. That's way too many.
That's a lot.
Well, let me get you out of here on this, man, as we wrap up the show. The NBA playoffs are happening. I know you're a big NBA head. I know your boys aren't in this thing. But the Nets with your boy James Harden got bounced out by these Bucks. What is your feeling right now as we look at 4 teams and neither one of them has won the title, in like 50 years?
Yeah.
So does this excite you? Are you excited do you think this is a changing of the guard with all this young talent in there like Devin Booker and Trae Young and Giannis and all them? Do you sense this is a changing of the guard, or is this kind of an anomaly year where a big team isn't there?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors, right? You're coming off the pandemic season with a short rest.
Right.
It was a shorter schedule, but it was a short rest period. And these guys played 76 games, and you saw so many injuries. Anthony Davis, LeBron for a long time, Kyrie Irving, James Harden. List goes on and on of all the superstars.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid. But I think that the final 4 teams that are in it, I was actually somewhat rooting for the Nets because I love Kevin Durant, And I wanted Harden to get a ring just so that conversation can end.
Yeah.
And I can say, look, he didn't do it in Houston, but he's a championship level player. Like, let's talk about the greatness of James Harden. But out of the teams remaining, I have found a reason to root for all 4 of them. So I won't be impressed. You know, Trae Young and the Hawks really battled in that 76ers series. Clint Capella, former Houston center, is on that team. So I liked, and I've never liked the 76ers. And I know, is that your team?
No. I was born in Philadelphia, but the Sixers, that's Ryan Nelson's team.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not a 76ers fan, and I don't trust the process for obvious reasons. I actually don't think that Joel Embiid is all he's cracked up to be, and I think that it was very telling of him that he really put the blame. Doc put the blame on Ben Simmons. I didn't like that at all.
Me too, man.
I didn't like that at all. You ride for your team even in defeat, and then you handle those conversations behind closed doors. Didn't like that from either player. And then we look at the Suns, who I always talk about, like, if they have the dog in them, and Devin Booker and Chris Paul have the dog in them. Like they will will themselves to victory. And I actually think that this COVID crisis with Chris Paul is a great thing that happened to him. Like, I'm glad that he's healthy, but he's also getting to take an extended time off. And we know Chris Paul's injury history, especially in the playoffs. Houston was a hamstring away from the NBA Finals, which we probably would have gone on to win that series against a broken down Cleveland team. I don't hold that against him or think about it every single day of my life. But, you know, I think that they have a really good shot of going all the way. Unfortunately, the Clippers, they don't have Kawhi. We'll see what Paul George can do.
Right.
And then the Bucks, I can't stand Giannis. Yeah. I love PJ Tucker.
What is the Giannis thing? I didn't know. Is it just his approach?
Do
you think it was dirty what he did to Kyrie? Do you think he slid under Kyrie?
I don't think that he would do that. I don't think that he would do that. I just think that he is somebody that the NBA media has hyped up to be the second coming, and I don't think he deserved one. Go look at his stats and James Harden's stats game by game in the last MVP that he won, where Harden put up 30 against every team in the league. He had 50-point nights. He had 60-point nights. He was triple-double machine, led the league in assists. And I'm like, you don't give this guy the MVP? Okay, we'll live in that world. But PJ Tucker, phenomenal human being that the float she actually showed him several houses when he was down here in Houston. Wow. And she said, what a Georgia peach of an individual. So I was rooting for Tucker just for those reasons. But I think the Suns are going to do it. Yeah. I think the Suns are going to take the title. And I would love that for Chris Paul. Yeah.
Talk about silencing a narrative, right?
Yes.
Chris Paul getting that ring once and for all, and being an integral part. It isn't like when Gary Payton got the ring on the Heat. He got that. Yeah, he had some critical plays, some key plays on the run, but no, Chris Paul is so important to that team, and all of them to a man said that afterwards in the press conference after their game 1 win over the Clippers. They were like, with Chris Paul, we kept looking for Chris Paul in that fourth quarter, and he wasn't there. We knew we had to do it, but we miss our guy and we want him back. And so that speaks volumes about the kind of leadership and generalship that he is showing on the court.
Look, man, look at his last 4 seasons, and he led when he joined the Rockets that first year. He and James worked so well together. We had more wins, 65 wins, the most wins in franchise history. Again, we were a hamstring away from making it to the finals, which I think that we would have won. We were a great team that year. Next year, we repeat. We just run into the same person that we always run into. We were a second seed, and then some weird thing happens where we lose to the Thunder, and then this team wins, and all of a sudden we're a 4 seed, and we have to see the Warriors in the second round. Yeah. But then look at what he did in Oklahoma City.
Dude, he took them to the playoffs.
Yeah, he took them to the playoffs and almost got Houston out of here in the first round. Yeah. Like, he was playing phenomenally, and he led that team. That team. And then when I saw him go to the Suns with Devin Booker, they opened up at plus 3,500 to win it all this year. And I said, that needs to be significantly lower. I'm not saying that they were a favorite. I didn't think that they'd be as far as they are. But I said, this team is going to give anybody, it's going to be the hardest out in the playoffs for anybody. Yeah. And we actually were doing the Schmoedown rundown, and we had Ace Cabrera, who's a big Suns fan, on. Yeah. And I told him all in the air so people can find it. It's documented. I said, y'all are going to beat the Lakers and probably go to the finals. Like, I just saw it in them. And when they beat the Lakers, I said, this is going to be a hard team to beat.
Yeah, yeah, and DeAndre Ayton you can't discount him.
Yeah,
but it's a fantastic young
great
team.
roster.
Yeah, and that showed you they had the fight in the bubble. Like if a few things had gone right, they'd have gotten in the playoffs last year as well.
They won all their games in the bubble, right? I mean, it didn't fall their way. It just didn't fall their way.
Exactly.
And Devin Booker, man, you know what I mean? This man is proving that there's not such a thing as a Kardashian curse anymore. He's like, I'm going to date a Jenner, and I'm going to win the title.
He's the only one. He's going to be the only one.
Look, again, what I tell you, John, I don't hate on greatness. I celebrate
I respect it.
I celebrate it.
Poor Ben Simmons, though. He's got a little bit of that residue working through. So
Yikes.
what do you do real quick? What do you do with Simmons, man? You trade him. A lot of people saying trade him to Sacramento. Some people saying Minnesota. I'm like, who are you going to take on Minnesota that's going to come to Philly and do any better? I don't know.
I don't know either. I think that
it ain't the cat. Yeah.
There's a couple of trades out there for him. I think that, look, here's the thing. We have to remember who the general manager of the 76ers are. It's Daryl Morey.
Yeah.
It's the guy who was down here in Houston. As soon as we lost in the second round 2 seasons ago to the Warriors, again, you can find the tweet. I said, knowing Daryl Morey, he's going to flip Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. I said it 2 weeks before it happened, 3 weeks before it happened, and then it happened. Yeah. I know how this guy thinks. He is shopping Ben Simmons nonstop. He will find a package, which I think, this is my prediction, will land Ben Simmons in Portland. I think CJ McCollum and Ben Simmons might be a part of a trade situation. Okay. Because they haven't been able to get over the hump. As great of a backcourt as him and Dame are, I think that if CJ McCollum was in the Eastern Conference his whole career, he'd probably been like a 6-time All-Star. But he just doesn't have what it takes to get them to the next level with that Portland team. And when you have a superstar who's in a moment like Dame Lillard is, you need to put the best package around him. Now, you put CJ McCollum, a point guard who's not afraid to distribute and can shoot the ball better than a lot of people can. I mean, CJ McCollum can black out from that three-point line. Put him with Joel Embiid. Okay, now we got something going here. Now I can work with that if I'm Doc Rivers. So I think that makes a lot of sense for Daryl to make that trade. I don't know if it happens, but that's where I would at least try that out first.
Who do you think will be the coach there, man? Do you think they're going to hire a woman coach, or do you think Jason Kidd is the choice there?
No, I don't. I think neither one. I think that D'Antoni probably goes over there.
Oh, God.
I do. I think D'Antoni's going to go over there.
Come on, he's 80 years old, man.
I know.
He should not be coaching young kids.
I know.
Young guys.
I was surprised that he took an assistant coach job with Steve Nash this year.
It's because he's an addict. He can't take that needle out.
I was hoping that he, again, for my same Harden reason, I was hoping that D'Antoni won the title as a part of the Nets, to give him that win, because he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
he revolutionized the game of basketball, and I loved him when he was a coach for us.
Yeah,
I think that just him. Well, I know he's salivating at the opportunity to get Dame Lillard. Like that's like a match made in heaven for him.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a female coach in the NBA. There's no reason we shouldn't have one. My thing is this, too. It's like, if you've got the goods and you're qualified, like, who really gives a damn, about anything else? And so I think kids, Billups is another possibility who could end up over there. Chauncey Billups could end up over there. So, look, my second favorite part about the NBA is when the season is over.
Oh, yeah.
And we get to see free agency. Like, every time free agency period starts, I go to Twitter, I turn on my notifications for Woj and Shams, and I enjoy that several day period.
It's a 12-month league now.
It
is. It didn't used to be, but it is now. Over the last few years, it's become a 12-month league. They single-handedly keep the Ringer alive. I know that.
They keep the Ringer alive. They do. They do. There's a lot of basketball talk over there. I'm looking forward to the next season. Hopefully this season I can because pandemic stuff, they didn't credential any media at the Rockets at a local level. I'm hoping this year that I can get back in there, because I'm going to support my Rockets no matter what. Even though, it was a rough season. It was a rough season for us.
Enjoy John Wall, brother. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, I don't.
Neither did I.
But
as a Wizards fan,
I think he ends up on the Knicks next year. Just to let everybody know, I think that's probably a possibility. I don't know. I want him out. I want that salary off the books. What was funny was, I was in the Toyota Center on Saturday night. Jamal Charlo was fighting for the WBC welterweight championship. I was there in the building, and Tillman Fertitta, they flashed him on the screen. I mean, a chorus of boos.
Oh my God! Wow.
And Farrah turns to me. She was like, "Why are they booing him?" I said, "He's the owner of the Rockets." She was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense. I get it."
Yeah, listen, I knew we were getting the better end of the deal. It didn't
Rockets
look
get
that
the second
way.
pick in the draft, by the way.
Oh, they did. They won that tonight.
That's what Chris Taylor just said.
Damn. All right. Shout out to the Rockets then. But yeah, I knew we were going to get the better end of that deal, man. Russell is a. You want to talk about a dog? He may never see a ring, but that dude will have the dog in him until he's dead. Like he's just an incredible player, man.
There's no player I've ever seen that works as hard as he does when those 48 minutes of gameplay are going, right? I would watch him even in warm-ups.
Yeah.
I would sit there on the sideline, standing on the hardwood, and watch him in the warm-ups, going at it like he was playing Game 7 of the finals. And he might not be the best shooter in the world.
Sure.
He might have a lot of shortcomings. I don't think he's really a point guard. He's a two guard, really.
Yes, agreed.
But nevertheless, you have to love how that man. If you like the game of basketball, you have to love watching Russell Westbrook because that's a guy who loves the game of basketball. Yeah. It's why I wanted to keep Chris Paul because Chris Paul's the same for me. Yeah. But Russ, I was like, hey man, let's see what happens. You know, it didn't work for us, but I was a big Russell fan when he was here.
Yeah. Russell is like the next evolution of AI. Like I think the next, he's in that transition period. He's not as, he might not lead a team to the finals, but he's the next evolution of AI. AI was a little bit of a better shooter, but the ferocity, the little guy ferocity that Westbrook brings to games, I've only ever seen from AI in a combination of that kind of talent. And it was beautiful to watch this year. We turned it around and got into the playoffs. And I think we're 1-2 shooters away from being a contender in the East, not for the title necessarily, but possibly to go to the finals if Russell stays and if Bradley stays, which is the big thing. So it's going to be curious to see.
Bradley's an if for y'all.
Yeah, we got to get a coach first. Bradley's probably in the process of this selecting a coach if he's going to stay.
Well, you know what? If they do it smart, he will be.
Yeah, right.
Unlike what they did in Houston when they hired Steven Silas, they didn't talk to James, they didn't talk to Russ, and as soon as they hired him, they said, all right, we want our trade.
That's true. That's true.
I wasn't mad at them. I was not mad at either one of them for wanting out.
No, and we'll see what happens in Dallas, too. That's a dumpster fire as well. All right, we got some quick Streamlabs, and then we're going to get Brad out of here. I know he's had a long day. So real quick, Justin Toner says, Brad, as a fellow James Bond fan, what are your favorite Bond actors and favorite Bond films? So whatever you want to say real quick, you rattle them off. You don't have to explain it too much if you don't want to.
We'll see. Okay, favorite Bond films. You have to go with Goldfinger just because it really set the formula for what we can expect from Bond movies. It had the car, it had the girl with the funny name, it had the great villain, it had the great henchman.
Yeah.
So that's a favorite of mine. I love Live and Let Die. Because it was like a call to the blaxploitation films of the 1970s, but it was in New Orleans. It had a great song by Paul McCartney and Wings.
Yeah.
And I think that was Roger Moore's first Bond, and I think it was his best Bond. He got a little bit sillier as the ones went on.
Moonraker.
So for me, he was like, Moonraker, right? Octopussy, those ones. So I really love that one. I love Skyfall and Casino Royale. How could you not?
Skyfall, yeah.
I mean, how could you not love both those movies? But Skyfall just hit it out of the park. And then for Pierce Brosnan ones, I feel like he was saddled with some bad scripts.
Yeah.
GoldenEye was good. Tomorrow Never Dies was cool. The World's Not Enough was cool. Die Another Day was like a complete mess, but I loved it. I loved it because it was just a mess.
Yeah.
But I think that like when you think about the look of a James Bond, you think of like Pierce Brosnan looks like James Bond, like this handsome, very handsome dude who's real smooth talking, but can get in those fight scenes and you're believable. But I think I think my Bond ranking goes Connery's number 1, then it goes Craig, then it goes Moore, Pierce, Lazenby, Dalton.
Yeah. All right.
I'm not a big Dalton guy. I know. I think. Are you you're a Dalton guy? No. I wasn't a big.
But
Dalton
I like Lazenby. I like Lazenby.
Lazenby wasn't bad, man.
Yeah.
And if you go watch the Hulu doc on him called Becoming Bond.
Yeah.
So good.
Right?
So good. Love his story.
I love that he was like, you know what? This is not for me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And he did a great job in that film. And when I watched that film, I remember all the stories around. I was like, man, it's such a shame he didn't stick around. It would have been very interesting. Also, one of the most uninteresting names of all the Bond names, which would have made it even more fascinating to see him become a star as George Lazenby. That's not necessarily a James Bond name in your mind.
No, it doesn't. It's not like Sean Connery.
Sean Connery, yeah.
It's just so great. And my favorite Bond song is maybe not necessarily the best, but it's my favorite. And it's The Spy Who Loved Me.
Carly Simon.
Carly Simon. Love it.
Damn good song. I don't disagree with you there. Yeah. I like the garbage song, World Is Not Enough. People don't give that one a lot of love. I like that song.
That was not bad.
That was not bad. The first 10, 15 minutes of World Is Not Enough is excellent. Like that whole opening with the boat and falling on top of the Wembley. That's fucking awesome, man. So
it's a great, like I said, he had a lot of great moments. He didn't have great scripts. But what was weird is Purvis and Wade were the guys who wrote all those movies, and then they ended up writing all the Craig movies. Yeah. And I'm like, how do you have like that? In one movie, you're making a joke that James Bond's a cunning linguist. Yeah. And then in another movie, it's like Casino Royale, the serious, hard-edged Bond who doesn't F around. I don't know how those same people write that, but I love the Bond films. I could talk about them all day.
I think an MGM exec came in and cut all this shit out. Christmas comes twice a year. Cut that shit out. They're not going to do any of that shit. We going to run. All right. Doug Developer says, I was born in 1988, but I see Short Round being one of the many reasons Asian boys would get bullied in elementary school during the mid-'80s. Shaking my damn head. Yeah, fair point, Doug. Doug is an Asian person himself, so absolutely.
What was the actor's name in The Goonies? What was his character's
name?
Same
guy. Tech. Wasn't it Tech?
I
think it was Tech or something like that. So
yeah, he was cool in that movie.
Yes, right, because he had all the gadgets.
He had all the gadgets. He was the Bond guy too. He was like a James Bond fan. But Short Round, not so much.
One last thing, because I know we got to get you out of here, Brad. It's from Tushka. He says, though the team name is not badass, the Florida State Seminoles have the best tribal relationship. Damn right. Name the team after a group of people and then profit share with that group. That's how you do it. Hashtag FCL, hashtag Brennan Nation, hashtag I'll be in Houston soon. Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, give me a shout. Give me a shout if you're in H-Town. Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
Oh, Data. That was his name. Data. Not
Data. Yeah. I was like, Tech doesn't sound right. Data's right. Yeah. Great one.
Glad they didn't come up in
Come on, man. Former champ here.
I'm getting rusty.
I just read the questions. You know what I'm
saying? Exactly. All right. Well, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time, brother. As I said, I know you just shot 2 matches and you had a long day, so really appreciate the time. With the time difference here, we're taking you into the night. But thank you on behalf of the entire Outlaw Nation and me, myself, for coming on. Please, what have you got going on? What have you got to promote? Talk about it all, my friend.
Yeah, man, you can just check me out on all social media at Brad Gilmore. Go over and subscribe to the Reality Wrestling YouTube channel. We're a few thousand away from 500,000, so we want to hit that before the end of the summer. That would be awesome. You can check out new episodes of Reality Wrestling over there, as well as Booker T and I's show, The Hall of Fame, which airs every Monday and Wednesday. We're actually off this week, but we'll be back next week, and we talk about all things pro wrestling, MMA, boxing, all combat sports, and sometimes we have random guests on from the worlds of pop culture, celebrity, music, all over the world. So go check that out over at Reality of Wrestling on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to you just had Alex Riley on. I want to listen to hear what he had to say, because if you go back and see the past to him and Cena, it's not a good past. So I want to see what Alex had to say about it. He does. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to listen to that. Yeah. Cena's all about the inspirational messages now, but we need to look a little bit back in his past as well to kind of make sure we're balancing those things out a little bit. Well, yeah, definitely follow Brad and everything he's got going on. Give him some love. I'm going to let him go. Get on with his night. I got to do some house cleaning at the end of this show. So, Brad, thanks again very much, brother. Great to see you. The Boat, ladies and gentlemen, the Boat. Give him love. Go and follow him on the FCL and everything he's got going on in his world. He's one of the best dudes on the planet. Nothing but love for you, my friend.
I appreciate you, John. Right back at you, man. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, you too. All right, that was Brad Gilmore hanging out with us. He is exhausted. You could tell his voice at the end there. It was struggling to finish. So thank you all so much for joining us here. I hope you're liking the new setup and the new camera. I hooked up the camera, well, not the new camera, but the new 4K Elgato Cam Link. I've hooked it up with the HDMI cable on the suggestion of a couple of friends, and it seems to be working, and it seems to be lasting for 2 hours instead of going out. So I hope you're liking the image and the picture that's going on here on the Outlaw Nation. Also, all the reactions and reviews I've been doing this week. Just dropped a Ted Lasso season 2 for the official trailer reaction to that. I love Ted Lasso. I love football/soccer. So it's great to see even more of what's going to happen in season 2. It's right around the corner. July 23rd is when it's dropping. Also did my reviews for Luca and my reviews for The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Those are out there now for you to watch. Give them some love. It's under 1,000 views. All those videos, would love it if we got it higher, over 1,000. I'm trying to do these reviews, do more of these trailer reactions. So I'd love it if you guys could give it a click and give it a like, and maybe even leave a comment. Even constructive criticism, I'm always open to that, as I'm, venturing out here and doing these reviews solo, which, as Brad said, I like to do them with another person, but I know I need to get into the practice of doing these things solo. So any love you guys can give or any advice you guys can give as you're watching the reviews would be much appreciated by me. All right, going forward for the rest of the week, tomorrow we might have a Jedi Way. Laura's taking the week off because she's got that big Schmoedown match happening. So I'm going to try to enlist somebody to come on as a guest for a live The Jedi Way tomorrow night. Also on Thursday, Thursday we're dropping some Geek Buddy stuff. Loki. All of that is in motion. We're going to drop tomorrow's episode of the Geek Buddies as well, sometime around noon or 1 o'clock tomorrow. So look for that. But our Loki review will be coming out later on this week with all of us and Emma Fife. And of course, if you have missed our Bad Batch spoiler reviews, we just did episode 7 and 8, Geek Buddies with Laura Kelly, breaking down the Geek Buddies without Laura Kelly because she was studying, but just the Geek Buddies breaking out episode 7, 8. That's there on the channel as well. And then, of course, on Friday, John and Wendy explain the world. And then on Saturday, we have Strong Style at noon and the Ultimate Schmoedown after show at 3 p.m. Both shows live. And there might be something coming up on Sunday. I've found that if I do shows on Sunday, people show up. We had almost 200 people watching us live on Sunday morning at 9 PT for those reviews this past Sunday. So I'm starting to think about a Sunday show in my mind, a little bit of a Sunday show to kind of detox from the week and then get us ready for the new week. So just kicking it around, maybe another Outlaw Nation show, maybe more of an interactive fan show. I'm not sure, but I'm kicking it around overall. And thanks to everybody who watched last week's Outlaw Nation show when I broke my thoughts down about In the Heights and all the stuff that was happening around that, but also all the other topics that were going on in the world of entertainment for sure. So I appreciated a lot of the responses that we got for that. You guys are incredible. So thank you very much for watching that as well. Please remember to hit a like on this video as you're watching it, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the Outlaw Nation as well. It's very important. Hit that bell so you know when we're dropping new content. And also the Patreon right there, patreon.com/John Rocha. That's where you want to go to be a part of the Patreon. We got so many things coming. Having a meeting tomorrow with the mods, with a person that is going to be kind of updating the Patreon. We're going to discuss all the things that we're doing here coming up in July for the patrons, and coming up with some new benefits for the patrons there as I move away from hosting SCN Live and kind of just focus on the channel and have more time available for people in the Discord, more time available for new patrons, more time available for returning patrons, more time available to create shows and all of that, and find out what patrons want for their money here and supporting the Outlaw Nation. So help us grow, help us be a part of it. Come aboard and support the Outlaw Nation on the Patreon as well. They're patreon.com/John Rocha. All right, don't forget the top 10 dropped today as well. The top 10, what did we do this week? We went back to our first episode of the top 10. We did the top 10 car chases in movies. We did our new list. We revised our list and did that. Went back to our first episode in honor of Fast 9 coming out. Look for my review on that dropping on Thursday as well. And then, and then coming up, the Cinephiles this week, we're dropping some new intros in honor of Ned Beatty. We've done 3 of Ned Beatty's movies, so we're dropping new intros to those episodes and re-releasing them. Network, Superman, and what's the other one that we did? And Deliverance. So Deliverance, Network, and Superman. And Michael Vogel came to hang out with us to do the intro for Superman since he was our guest for Superman. So new intros honoring the late, great Ned Beatty. And then on Friday, we'll drop our episode, which is all shorts. And then next week, we're back with part 1 of Die Hard. You guys asked us to go back in time and give it the full Cinephiles treatment. Die Hard was one of those first episodes we did on the Cinephiles, and so we're giving it a full Cinephiles treatment. So look for all that. So yeah, that's all my work, ladies and gentlemen. I'm busy man, but all this stuff is happening for sure. All right, take care of yourselves. Be well. I love you. Remember what I say at the end of every Outlaw Nation show. Whatever you need to do to get through the next second, next minute, next hour, next day, next week, next month, next year, I want you to do that. I know it can be tough. I know it can be hard to put that one foot in front of the other, but we're all in this race. I'm right there, right next to you. We're all right next to you, and you're right next to us. Don't forget that. We're walking this path together, and we're there for you when you need us. So you can do it. We need you to do it. And we want you to stay a part of the Outlaw Nation as we build this thing. All right? I love you. Be well. Take care of yourselves. And we'll talk to you soon. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody's Streamlabs Super Chats before I say goodbye. Absolutely. Okay, cool. All right. Take care of yourselves. Be well. And we'll talk to you next. Oh, thanks to Sean Barreto as well for helping produce the show tonight. Really appreciate it, brother, man. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the Outlaw Nation Show next week. Peace. Be well.